Okay, we're all set. Great. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the November 19th meeting of the Village of New Paltz Planning Board. Tonight we have some administrative business. First up, followed by two public hearings and a number of other applications to review. To begin, I'd like to review our meeting minutes from the October 1st meeting and October 15th meeting. Did anyone have any comments or see anything they'd like to correct in those? No. Great. In that case, could I get a motion to approve the minutes for October 1st and October 15th?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next up, we have our updates. I heard earlier from Bill Murray that he would not be able to attend the meeting tonight. He had no update to share. Are there any updates from our town planning board liaison?
No updates at this time.
Thank you. Any updates from the
Environmental board?
yeah,
Well, sure, they tried to have a meeting. But when the chair arrived, the room was dark. And so the door was locked, and so we didn't have a meeting. But I ended up looking for everybody, and I found the mayor. And I had a brief talk with him, and he's very much in agreement with the town that a new construction should absolutely not have driveways going into the brand new bike path that they're about to build. And I told him I had voiced as much and no one cares. And he, I don't know, it's just the way it is. But he agreed with the town. We got a memo this week about it. And I've had a lot of work has gone into it. They also said that people should be patient. The traffic is horrible, but it's really hard to get people to do work. And that's what's happening now. All the work that needs to be done is getting done, and that's why the traffic is slow.
okay, thank you. Were there any updates from the building department? Mike?
So there's a memo in your packets from Dennis Larios regarding the 3 Water Street project. We had the applicant's engineer did the drawing and also sent a memo which, if it's not in the folder, it will be. But Dennis reviewed it and was in agreement that the paving of the apron would be sufficient for, and the applicant's engineer had made an argument of why additional drainage area there was not necessary. Dennis did agree with their engineer. So with that, I will get you, once I get the plans from him, I'll get you to sign that site plan. We have an update from the 2729 Main Street. We got the landscaping estimate. It was surprisingly only about $7,000. I've relayed that and we've invoiced for that amount. We're gonna just do that as an escrow since it's such a small amount. Nobody's gonna bond for $7,000. So we're just gonna do it as an escrow. We'll hold the money until the work is done, and then we'll return the money when the work is complete and the applicant is fine with it. Regarding training, just a reminder again, and I know I keep saying it, but please get your 4 hours of training by the end of December. I had mentioned that I would be, if the board would like, I would do a training on Thursday, December 5th, on sort of planning and zoning. I wanted to get some feedback. If the board felt that they would still like to do that, I'm happy to do that. That would be either an hour and a half or 2 hours of training, depending on exactly how long we end up being. But I know some of you already have your 4 hours, others are shy, a little bit shy. But,
I would attend that training.
Okay.
I offered it.
I will, is there a preference if we start a little earlier at 6:30 or is 7 preferable?
Anytime after 5.
Okay.
5:30 would be great. for me.
I'm
Okay.
interested even though I have my hours.
Okay, well, the hours would certainly roll over to future, so if you already have your hours, any additional that you do roll over to the next year, but you can never make them back up again once they pass. So
Thank you.
maybe I'll do it at 6 then, just to give everybody a little bit of more window then. So I will plan on that and I'll get an announcement out, on that. That's really about it. Nothing else I can think of right now.
Okay, great, thank you. That case, I'd like to move on to our public comment section. If anyone here would like to make a public comment, not related to the two public hearings we have tonight. We'll do so, I guess. If you have not already signed up on the sheet, please do that.
So I have 2 people signed up. The first is Mark. Axman.
Hi, so this is,
Uh,
I'm gonna do.
You can just come to the table, yes, we're a little less formal.
I don't know. So I live on Prospect Street and I'm on 37. So Prospect Street,
so is this in
no,
regard to?
this is about the water problems.
Okay,
Okay, so it's not the Nixon problems. So Prospect Street is a little bit weird because it comes from Main Street and through, what is it, John Street, it's downhill. From Du Bois, it's going downhill and I'm sort of like in the cross, all right? So during these once in a lifetime storms, which happen, I guess, monthly, all the water comes down and it goes through a culvert, which is on my property, which is, I guess, an easement or whatever you want to call it. And it's, shaped like that, it goes to the backyard. I have a storm runoff drain in between my property and Ingrid's property. And that always gets flooded and leaves cover it up. And there's another storm runoff right across the street, and that always gets covered with leaves. There's also another storm runoff behind me on Matt's property, where the apartment buildings are, and that is above grade, so it's basically useless. I've been trying to get somebody out there to look at it, and somebody did come out, and they say, oh yeah, we see the problem, just give a call when there's leaves there. But they refuse to do anything on Matt's property because it's private property. Matt, I think, last year, he said he was gonna call up and try to speak to an engineer and try to correct the situation. Between the two properties in my backyard and Matt's property, which is on Du Bois, whatever, there is a big, I guess, depression over there. So all the water goes into that area, it fills up, floods my backyard, floods my neighbor's backyard, and he bitches at me, I ignore him because that's the way it is. If the storm runoff drain was in the depression, everything would be good. And I want to find out, why can't it be done? It's digging a hole, going into the existing pipe, which is right there. The storm runoff is over here, the depression is over there, it's like right next to each other. It's 5 feet away. So that's what I'm complaining about. It floods everybody's property, well, not everybody, but it's my property, Dennis's property, and Matt's property is all driveway anyway, blacktop. So it really doesn't affect them.
well, thank you, I would recommend you get in touch with the department.
I have
It works,
I did.
we can't really do anything about
Well,
Whose property is it on, the one of the network?
Matt Idler,
Oh,
he owns the apartment building adjacent to my backyard and adjacent to Dennis's backyard. So at least this way it's on record somewhere.
and he
Yeah.
refuses to,
No, he's fine with getting the work done. The town doesn't wanna go there because it's private property.
It's like we were on his property.
Right, and isn't it like, kind of like, it's the town's, has an easeway to get, to go onto his property to fix a problem? I mean, the telephone company and Mid Hudson, Central Hudson comes on my property to fix the poles,
Sorry,
just throwing it out there.
thank you. Sorry about
No.
that. That's it.
We have one other person signed up, Linda, is it? Raspberry?
Yeah,
Okay,
so, I'm concerned that the planning of the Du Bois trail is not taking into consideration Prospect Street. I'm on Prospect Street also. So here's Prospect Street, which goes downhill from Du Bois. And now between the two, between the trail, they've made it to grade to the street and then to grade to the street on this side. There's only 20 feet. And I've been standing there for the last 3 days and several cars have almost had accidents because when they're trying to come in and go into the street, there's only 20 feet for them. They're going this way, right? The cars are trying to come out here. I feel that they went too drastic and we should have another at least 6 feet. And I just want to make sure that in the future planning, because only from the corner to Ingrid's house, that's the only part of Prospect that hasn't been paved as of yet. The pavement has been done from the other side. So if they come in and pave that now, you're gonna lose another at least 5 feet, which reduces that part of Prospect down to 15 feet for 2 cars to go by. And I hear we're gonna put 4 houses on that corner, and which is a possibility of 8 more cars to come down onto Prospect and try to get, and I have pictures of, and try to get through it. So I feel that whole corner, that whole area, which is Dennis Young, Frank,
want it on the record, I can.
is like,
Yeah.
it's gonna be too congested, and I'd like to make sure that the engineers are looking at this, and even the water problem, when you put an impermeable driveway on that big hill that's coming down, that's gonna continue to flood that area where the town hasn't made the drainage big enough for all of the flooding. I've called on 911 several times that winter and summer because my husband has to wade in water to undo the drain because it just keeps on going up and then coming into the property. So there's like, I'm kind of worried that what's been proposed with 20 feet now, with an addition of 5 feet to be taken away from that, it's not gonna be wide enough for traffic. So I don't know, I'm hoping that they're not gonna pave, and I hear from several people that they are. So I'd like that to be made public eventually, like soon, before it happens, because I don't think it's safe to decrease the width of that street unless you want to make it into a one-way. Because now we're also talking about people not wanting that driveway on Du Bois. So if they just put the driveway there on Prospect, we're talking the possibility of 8 more cars trying to get out of there and get to the street with a 15-foot leeway, because if they decrease that 20 feet, another 5, it's gonna be down to 15. And are you saying that I can't park my cars on the street? Because now we're talking about taking away the parking. Because if I park my car on the street and it's only 15 feet, then that means there's only a 10-foot leeway for any car to go either way on that street, because people park on the side of the street. So I think it needs to be reviewed, like the amount of distance and the possibility and the ridiculous thing of having 4 more houses on that corner with 8 more cars that are gonna come down that hill into this whole congested area. It's terrible. And I've witnessed, and if somebody wants to do some kind of auditing of the corner, it would be good for someone to stand there and see what this happens when people are trying to get by, and it's not easy. And then we're gonna have bicycles and people walking, and so I just want to make sure that everybody's aware of its lack.
That's all we have signed up.
Okay, is there anyone else here that would like to make a public comment or online that would like to make a public comment? Okay, in that case, I'd like to move on to our first public hearing. Should I get a motion to open the public hearing for PD 21-21? Where's it? Prospect Street and Henry W. Boys.
So,
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We have a number of people signed up.
Okay,
The first is Mark Axman.
Back again. This time the pictures. So my wife touched on the whole Du Bois thing, you know, through the traffic. 30 feet from curb to curb. South of John Street. In front of my house is 22 feet. On the corner of Du Bois and Prospect is 20 feet from curb to curb. All right, over here is not finished where I'm assuming that the town is gonna put their walkway down, right? So the walkway that they've just made was 4 feet, 7 inches for curb. So that's taking us down, as she said, 15 feet. If I park my car there, somebody's gonna take the mirrors off. And that,
how is this? I'm sorry to interrupt, but.
it's still coming back all to the same thing. Now, from what I just heard is that you want to get the 8 cars in and out of Du Bois, in and out of Prospect. Where are they going? Number one. Number two is because you're putting 4 houses into that corner lot. What about the rain runoff? All right, I understand you could get around part of it with a gravel driveway, you know, so it'll be drainage, but still, you're still having 4 houses of 1,700 square feet houses that's gonna inhibit the drain runoff on the water. So, and on top of that, the 8 cars coming in and out. I think it's an accident waiting to happen. I think cars are gonna get damaged and that's it. I mean, I don't know what to say. I don't think enough thought went into how wide, I mean, your car is what, 6 feet from mirror to mirror? And it's only 15 feet from curb to curb down there? Somebody can't park in front of their own house? What do I do? Do I park on my grass in the front lawn? Do I turn my front lawn into my own parking lot? I can't have friends over? So I think that's it. Yeah, thanks, yeah. For you. You want the plastic?
No, I don't need that.
Okay,
You can keep that. Thank you.
sure.
The next speaker is Linda, is it Library or?
Yeah, I don't really have much to add, except for the fact that if you, again,
Can you come up here, because the microphone won't pick you up back there, so.
I don't have really much to add, other than, again, that someone should look into the whole project and make sure that if you do want to put a driveway that empties into Prospect, then when the cars come down the driveway and have to make a left or a right, because it's a 2-way street, and there's cars that are parked across the street in front of Frank's house or Dennis's house, and there's gonna be a curb there. We have to make sure that when those cars come down, that they're not gonna be obstructed and they're gonna have a free turn unless you wanna put a parking light, a light there. Because like other cars are coming this way, they're coming this way, and now you want someone to come down on this tiny little street on Prospect out of their onto their driveway and make a right or a left. So that's, you know, you don't have enough room, and I think that an engineer or someone should really go measure and say, is this proper? Was this the right move? And to put 4 houses there. I don't want any houses there, but I can see 2 maybe. You know, I could see 2, but, you know, 4 more cars coming on. And then when you do the driveway there, just be sure that you're doing a driveway that is permeable and is not gonna add to the flood, because as you said, it comes down and it goes this way. And you could check the 911, I've called many times, and they have seen the floods that happen there. So now you get another driveway coming down with more water added, because there's not enough permeation with the whole area. You're taking it all away now. So that water's coming down and it's coming right onto Prospect. So that's what I'm concerned about.
The next speaker signed up is Town Supervisor Amanda Gatto.
So, I've been here before, and I just wanted to, say that we have been working with Mr. Niffen on the Henry Du Bois project, and we were able to work with him with scheduling, so he got his water and sewer tied in before we had to pave the path, so that worked out well. And, we would just like to, and we also say that the path is made to the specifications of a residential driveway. It is 2 layers that make 4 layers of paving. So it's built to handle residential traffic, cars. It's not built to handle construction equipment. So I'd ask is that for constructions, that it comes in off of Prospect, and goes through whatever temporary access it needs to get to the various buildings, so that we don't have excavators and cement trucks and things like that going across the path.
What about the driveways? Did you find any resolution on those, or is she still gonna?
Well, we would, as far as damage to the bike path, the driveways for cars won't hurt it. Having the corner and the driveway at Caroline is kind of close to have a lot of crossings, but we would prefer that they not be there. But what we really don't want is construction equipment going in the car.
Thank you.
Okay, the next speaker is Perry, is it Goldshine? Yeah. And just real quickly for the board, in your packets are correspondence received by email, also from Mr. Goldshine, that was received this morning, so.
Okay, yeah, perfect. That was the first thing I was gonna check, and I was kind of the central point for drafting, but that was joint comments by the neighbors, several neighbors on Caroline Way and also Prospect. John Oleski, the neighbor on Prospect, is also here. So I'm glad that you got that. Anybody not have a chance to review that yet?
They just got them tonight,
Just
so,
got them,
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So I'll keep that in mind, you know, as I go through some of the comments I had. So, you know, my wife and I, my family, we've lived adjacent to the proposed subdivision for over 10 years with the other Caroline neighbors there. You know, we love living in that home, and we participated in the vast majority, as you folks probably recall, of the meetings around this particular subdivision proposal. We support smart development, and smart development requires also smart infrastructure, including for both proper sewer and water management, which was an issue already touched on this evening by the other commenters, and also for mitigations for the quality of life for the community, especially during a multi-year construction proposal for a particularly sensitive and settled neighborhood. At this time, and as proposed, the project lacks both those things. The sewer and water overflows are the result of the lack of the infrastructure, the smart infrastructure that's needed. This is something that the village, we became only recently aware that the village has been aware and dealing with for over 20 years, essentially, water and sewer issues. We knew water was a challenge, and we knew it impacted us specifically because many times over the years we've been there, we've seen the sewage overflow, water overflows out of the manhole, out of the sewer drain that Mark had referred to earlier. And I've shared pictures and videos in just the last year of 2 events where that had happened substantially from last December and then again in this August. And I don't know that clearing leaves is gonna help that much because it's not just having trouble getting in the grate, it's coming out of the grate, out of the manhole. The video shows that clearly. And that's right by, in between Mark's property, our flagpole property, and then, where John lives, 38 or 36 Prospect across the street. That's been an ongoing challenge, for us as neighbors, as well as, a public health, problem. So the village must address this before approving development in specific areas, especially like this one, where the problem is acute. As I mentioned, we became aware of the extensive history. One of the documents that I have a link to in the comments is one just from July, where the village had submitted a consolidated funding application. And it does a pretty good job of that document of going through that history for anyone on the board that isn't aware of that already. The DEC, has fined the village in the past, for violations of its obligation to provide adequate infrastructure and then make sure that that's operational. There was even threats by certain parties, including Riverkeeper, pursuing the village for lack of meeting those obligations. I've already mentioned what we've experienced. And when we first moved in, just for further context, now I know this, Niffen Builders argues that they aren't required to do anything more than not add to the problem that's already there. And the way that they're proposing to do that is with water gardens that are privately owned on the 4 lots. And I don't see how anyone can have high confidence that those water gardens could be expected to handle the volume of water that we now get, both the current time, when you take into climate, as well as future expected water flow issues there. Part of our confidence, the lack of confidence, comes again from our own experience. When we moved in, a culvert pipe was needed at the back of the property where the stone path, walking path ran. That's adjacent to our property, adjacent to 36 Prospect, as well as our neighbor on Caroline's property. There was a stream soon after we moved in, running down there after a water event. To their credit, Niffen came in, they put in another larger culvert pipe in that spot. Again, even that wasn't enough. Another water event came in the first few months and it created a stream over our walking path, and very disconcerting to see a stream in your backyard where there shouldn't be one. Finally, the last time a large enough culvert pipe was put in, and it hasn't really been much of an issue. There was an overflow. We understand there's been more rain, there's been more intense rains, and that may happen, but it's been more or less adequate during that time we've been there. So when we look at those things and we see what's proposed, we're not really confident, that that's the case. One of the concerns that you had, Richard, at one of the earlier board meetings in August was about maintenance of those water gardens, and Niffen responded that they will have proper documentation to maintain them, the property owners on their own. I don't see how an issue that has public, again, especially one for the village, that the village has been cited by on the DEC and others over 20 years, how we can expect to rely on private property owners to adequately maintain the water tools or whatever systems that would then prevent this continuing to be a problem. Mark already mentioned, and that was another thing that hadn't been captured in earlier meetings. Part of the intensity of what we're experiencing is because Prospect is a bowl. I just recently noticed, well, look at that, it is sloping down from Henry Boyd, it does slope down from Main Street. And so it's, it just has to be addressed, and it has to take into account where we are, on a climate perspective and future water needs. And that was part of what we've seen. And one of the other things, and John, I'll touch on it, so I won't go into it more, is that the same engineer has been engaged for this project, that was engaged for the work done on Prospect. And that was also engaged for the grant. I think the consolidated funding application, the village is a long-running relationship with that engineering firm. There's arguably a conflict of interest there. The engineering firm itself had in the drawings for this proposal that the sewer line on Prospect connects to the one on Henry DuBois. Apparently it does not. In their own grant proposal for the village,
This
they
engineering firm you talking about?
I'm sorry,
Which engineering firm? Bernier and Larry's?
it the Prospect sewer line
Yeah.
ends at 36 Prospect over 100 feet from Henry DuBois.
No, I'm asking the name of the firm.
Oh, I don't recall the name of the firm. And I don't have it, in my notes, so apologies for that. But it is the same one the village has used for many years. And for whatever reason, they show it ending where it does a 36 Prospect rather than Henry DuBois in the grant proposal, but in the plan, the drawings for this proposal, they're showing it connecting to Henry DuBois. I'll let John talk further to that. I know he's next on the comments. And so, those are some of the things that we see should happen, must happen before we have approval of plans that will add to that ongoing challenge. And then besides the sewer and water overflow obligations, the village, and we've talked about this and submitted comments, and the planning board also have a right and obligation under municipal codes to include stipulations in any approval that help the proposed development minimize unnecessarily negative impacts on the community. So stipulating, how this can be reduced from something that is, if it's not addressable, will be several years of construction. And I've shown pictures, but just to help best understand, we face across essentially what's a private driveway that's not as wide as the roads. There are four subdivided lots proposed. And there will be work done on those lots, 3 of them, literally no more than 50 feet from our own front door. Just to give the board a better sense of what we're trying to communicate there. And then, of course, the other property owners will have that kind of nearness, for lack of a better term, that they deal with there. And so that's why we asked for that reasonable review, again, of municipal codes in the approval, any approval in the future. First, though, the water needs to be addressed before that approval, and then when we get to that point, having these stipulations for having to mitigate that impact is something that we'd like to encourage. And for all these reasons in the above, just finally that we urge the board not to take any further steps in approval of this proposal until these things are addressed. So, thank you for your time and patience. Thank you.
Thank you.
And the next person signed up to speak is John Oleski.
Hi. Thank you. So just briefly, to introduce myself again, to anyone who doesn't know me, my name is John Oleski. I live at 34 Prospect Street, which is a 2-family home side by side with 36 Prospect Street. I am a former member and chair of this board. I am also an attorney in private practice. And I am here after multiple attempts to get through this message. I guess I'm going to be very direct about it. My intention is to file an Article 78 if the board approves this subdivision, because I'll tell you the reasons why. I will say, I am the person who sent the board a video of the flooding that infiltrated the recently repaired sanitary sewer in front of the property I live in, with the water burbling up out of the sanitary sewer. And my daughter asked me if she can play in it, and me telling her no, that's not safe for her to do. That was, I believe, in August. In my prior correspondence to the board, I had mentioned the sewer issues multiple times. I am pretty disappointed that the board went ahead apparently last month with a negative secret declaration. And I've read the board's secret declaration, and it addresses, it says there are no additional infrastructure needed in the first paragraph. That's not true. There needs to be 4 additional connections to the sewer system, which all of the plans for and the requirements for are not in this application, which is another reason why I can't go forward. But the fact is that The board addressed the stormwater runoff issues, and I'll tell you that I believe that Harry is understating the issue here. The idea that the board can allow a developer to say, oh, well, we're not going to be adding to this known huge flood problem by developing on this hillside because we're going to make the private purchasers, when we later do site plans, have these rain gardens, and they're going to be responsible for maintaining them perfectly over the years to make sure this flooding doesn't get worse. And what's the recourse for any of us if they don't? There is none. That's the board's current written plan, and the written seeker negative declaration does not include the word sewage at all. Despite the fact that, and again, I've tried to bring this forward, and I understand that it may be one hand doesn't know what the other hand is doing. The Village of New Paltz has been under a consent decree from the Supreme Court of Ulster County for 8 years in a litigation brought by Riverkeeper as the plaintiff. That's why the village had to spend the $1 million to fix the sewer on Prospect. And in the proposal that this builder's engineer prepared for the village, we promised the federal government that we weren't going to add anything more to the sewer system, that the plan for remediation we were asking for the money for assumed we weren't going to add any more connections to this area where raw sewage had continued to overflow into the street in front of where my children live. So I didn't understand how we could get to a full secret declaration, a negative secret, without even addressing those things. I feel confident the reviewing course would agree with me that the board, if it goes forward on a negative secret declaration that doesn't even include the word sewage, when that's kind of the main #1 thing that's in the village code of what you got to make sure is okay. Now, on top of that, there's a bunch of other kind of technical issues that I should raise just because I do want to be helpful about this and try to make sure that, you know, I don't want to waste my time suing the village in Article 78. But so just, you know, as an example, the board can do, you know, it can waive the requirement for a preliminary plat. But I don't believe the board ever approved the sketch plan properly. I believe the time for that expires. I don't believe that the board can be continuing now with assuming that it did do something with a sketch plan in 2022 and now can go forward with a subdivision plan approval without having to go through that first step. But that's, you know, that's just one issue. On top of that, this public hearing was not supposed to happen under the village code unless there was a report from the village engineer that dealt with the sewage issues I'm talking about. But there is no report submitted by the applicant, even though that is part of the requirements under, I will give you the exact code. That's under Village Code Section 178-13 subdivision plat. This is B. Prior to the public hearing, the subdivider shall file with the planning board the written recommendations of the village engineer and superintendent of public works. That's intended to make sure, because any new properties that have these sewage connections, that is not going to overtax our overflowing with raw sewage system that's under a court order. But that didn't. So I think that would also make any decision here fatally flawed. On top of that, although the requirements for the subdivision plat for a 4 or fewer lot subdivision are limited, they are not completely limited, and under 178-23, this is F. The location of existing and proposed sewers, water mains, culverts, and storm drains, including pipe size and type, grade, direction of flow, ownership, and stormwater detention facilities. So stormwater, okay, arguably the drawings deal with that, even though I don't believe the rain gardens will hold up. But as far as the sanitary sewers, the drawings that they gave you, including the most recent ones from November, whatever it was, a week ago, do not show the sewage connections between the new properties and the sewer system. They don't have any of these requirements for the details they're supposed to have. And as Perry suggested, they're wrong in a way that is very relevant and really disturbing. Because the Prospect sewer has to be fixed. There's a 100-year-old sewer that was made of clay, and it ends at a manhole in front of my house, 3436 Prospect Street. That's the one that's burbling up in the video. Okay, now on the drawings they gave you, it shows ESS, the sanitary sewer, existing sanitary sewer, continuing along Prospect in front of these two of the four proposed subdivided plants, all the way to link up to the sewer main that goes down Du Bois. But it doesn't. It ends there in a stub. And that's why the rest of Prospect was never ripped up and repaved. That's why there are no manholes on that segment of Prospect in between my property and Du Bois. That is why if you look at the engineer who did this plan, when they did it for the village and asked for the money from the government, in that report, you can see in the plan they submit there, how the stub ends where it does and doesn't connect. So what you have is this stressed, very old sewer system that just got repaired. And they're now saying, no problem, put on 4 connections on a map where they don't even have what the sewer system looks like correct. So I urge the board to urge the applicant to try to slow down and get this done right. If they really think that they can show the science that no biggie to throw on four more sewage connections onto this existing problem that I just described, subject to court order, et cetera, okay, I'll come back and I'll hear it. But based on what's happened so far, if the board goes forward with this, I expect to file an Article 78 as soon as I'm after. So thank you very much.
That's the last speaker that is signed up.
Okay.
So I don't know if you want to check in person, please.
Yes, is there anyone else here that would like to make a public comment regarding Prospect Street and Henry W. Boy's subdivision? Okay. Seeing none,
There's a large number of people on the line here, so I don't know if any of them want to speak.
is there anyone online that would like to speak? Okay, we have one.
Yep. You can go ahead and unmute yourself, Mr.
Plantinga, I'm Gilbert Plantinga of 8 Caroline Way. I would just like to voice my support for everything that Perry and the last speaker said about the sewage and water problems. They will adversely affect certainly my property as well. And I'm also concerned about the amount of time involved in constructing this project. I think that the 4 houses, the 4 lots are entirely out of scale, that it should be at most 2 if he's going to develop something. And I also heard that in the beginning of the meeting, before this part of the hearing, that there's problems with having driveways cross the new rail trail. I really like the new rail trail, or Empire State Trail going down Du Bois. It's a wonderful thing, and it should not be chopped up with more driveways. But where are the cars for these 4 or even 2 lots going to go? Are they going to go down to Prospect Street? I don't see all of that. I'm concerned also that the conflict of interest that Perry mentioned may have been overlooked, and I really do hope that the board can see to it to slow this project down and make sure that if anything is done at all, that it's done right. On top of that, if he builds this thing, I'm really going to miss the red-tailed hawk that has been roosting in the trees on the property opposite my driveway now for the whole 6 years or 7 years since I've been there. And it's like a lot of habitat's going to be lost as well. I don't see how this thing, at least as planned, is in any way appropriate for the character of the neighborhood. Thank you all.
Okay. Is there anyone else online here to make a public comment? Okay. In that case, does the board? I mean, I would recommend that we close the public hearing at this time. Does the board in agreement? Any other dissenting?
I would recommend we leave the public hearing.
Okay. Everyone
If
else.
I could advise the board, bear in mind that if you close it, you have 62 days to make a decision, and given the large number of comments, it may take a while to get reactions and responses back from the appropriate people regarding those comments, so that's my own personal opinion.
Yeah, no, that's
I would
good.
recommend that you consider.
Good reminder. Okay, so in that case, I'd like to get a motion to adjourn the public hearing until our next meeting. I suppose this will probably be, yeah, December 3rd.
Yeah, move to adjourn the hearing until the meeting. Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Our next public hearing for tonight is PB 24-19. Do I have a motion to open the public hearing for PB 24-19?
So moved.
Main Street?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
There is no one signed up.
Is anyone here tonight to make a comment about 52 Main Street? Is anyone online who'd like to make a comment about 52 Main Street? Okay, in that case, I'd like to get a motion to close the public hearing for 52 Main Street. So moved. Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great. Moving on to our first application review then. I believe, yeah, so our first application tonight would be PB 24-19, 52 Main Street. Please come up.
No.
So, any update? Could you just give us an update since last year? What is happening with the DBA or any other changes?
Nothing changes. I was here at a meeting for the variance, which I'll be back on the 10th. Pretty much everything stays the same, just waiting for the outcome.
Yeah, the ZBA is set for public hearing on December 10th. It was discovered that for the variance, because it's not it's an area variance, but not a side yard, that it is required to refer it to Ulster County Planning Board. So from the ZBA, but not from this board. So the ZBA has referred it for their December meeting for comment on it. It just doesn't meet the exception agreement. It's unusual that something goes from the ZBA and not from the planning board, but in this case, because there's no
Okay,
change to the site plan, it's exempted from this board.
I see. Understood. And I see that you provided some answers to those questions in the special use permit. I just had a few questions about these because it doesn't seem like you're really discussing the bar use in this so much. So for example, I still am confused about like what is actually being offered, whether like there's going to be a sit down bar with just drink service, if there's going to be liquor, like you don't list how late this will be open.
So I was asking to be open from 11 a.m. to 2 a.m. serving full menu as a restaurant and a bar. I had previously at my other space that was in town, I was serving full liquor. I had a full liquor license. So I wanted to carry that over to this business as well. That's what my aim is.
It makes sense.
And it's a free flowing, so there's a, I didn't take a picture again, but it's a divider in the middle, like an island, which blocks the bar area. And then there's a whole dining area.
One question I have about the set of questions is the first question is based on the premise that the location is in a residential area. Is that, what is the basis of that?
I have no idea because, well, it would be for, well, maybe Emily can answer better, but having sort of inherited this form, it's, if it was located in strictly a residential district.
It's the criteria for special use.
For special use permit, not
And the
for a
first
bar.
one is if it's in a residential
So
district.
the first
You don't need to get
explanation
to
and
that.
response that the applicant provided isn't even a required response because it's located in a commercial district.
Correct, well, it's a mixed use district because it often has
Yes, I understand.
residential above, but correct, yes.
So I appreciate that we want to kind of get a good sense of what the service would be, the hours of operation would be, you know, capacity, all the things that we would want to know. But I don't think any of those are based on the premise of that question, so I just want to make sure you're going to ask to answer something that isn't even the requirement of your application.
Okay.
You know, that's the most bar-centric block of our town.
Correct.
Right,
Right.
yeah.
So for instance, to Zach's point, you know, it says things like maintain reasonable operating hours. I think we should be a little more specific about what exactly the operating hours would be. Food service, full liquor license versus beer and wine. All the things that are your intentions, I think could be detailed a little more clearly. But I don't know that they have to be in the context of that question, if that question is for that.
Well, maybe not that question, but
Yeah.
the question 4 asks
Yes.
about noise and, whether it's more objectionable than other allowed uses, so,
Exactly.
it might come into play in this.
And I don't know, maybe, please go ahead.
As far as the noise, I'll have that controlled. I'm not putting loudspeakers up for one. I'm not putting speakers outside, premises. I've been around Newport for quite a while, so I live in Newport. So I know exactly, what to do and what not to do, what's expected and what's not expected, what's gonna be endangering to the traffic class and by or students, and so I would control the noise.
So does that mean there wouldn't be any private parties or private events?
My take is, I would have like bands playing, but not.
Oh, so there is music.
Yeah, I have it on the
It's there.
thing.
They're next
It's
to the
there.
office and they've got Snugs across the street. I mean, Lola's on the other corner. And
Lola's,
Lola's,
yeah.
that plays really loud.
And they're outside, but I'm not inside, I'm tucked in the corner there.
Yes, you need to have the dog and storm maybe. Right? I mean, it's part of it.
Well, I think it's nice that you're gonna serve food, because I don't know about anybody else around here, but I better not get hungry and eat balls after 10 o'clock.
No, because then you're stuck with one pizza.
Listen, I'm home and I cook and I get hungry too, so you reach out for something and it's pizza,
Yeah,
yeah.
so that's really great.
Yeah, it is sort of
It's the board's job for a special use permit to put any conditions on that are necessary to make sure there won't be a, negative impact. It's the reason for the questions.
I understand.
Yeah, for sure.
Are there is the request that we're giving suggestions for how to submit additional information in these responses, or like, what are we asking the applicant to do? So that we can
Well,
Well, the board is looking for additional answers to the questions that are more specific, I think. You should let the applicant know, and I apologize with the crossover of the ZBA, and so, because much of what she's saying today. She made the ZBA aware of, and sort of my apologies for not getting that wrapped into the planning board application. But the hours of operation.
Okay.
Was slated or proposed the 11 AM to 2 AM. Except on Sundays, right? You said till midnight on Sundays, so. And that was portrayed to the ZBA, so apologies for the lack of getting that.
Yeah, I guess I was just trying to get information to see if we needed to add any special conditions.
Yeah. I agree.
I don't know that we need to like have it all written in this document, but yeah, I know that, you know, some members of the community have expressed some concern because there were instances at Jamaica Choice where the police were called and parties got out of control, and so just trying to figure out if that same thing was gonna be happening on this location. No.
Blame it on my. No, I know better. No.
Okay, understood. I mean, I'm not sure even what sort of condition we could add there, but
Well, we could put the hours of operation, right?
yeah, certainly would like to include that.
One question, I think that is an issue on the street generally is when, places have lines. And outdoor lines that form outside.
Yeah,
You can see that, up on Main Street, both of those bars on certain nights of the week and of the week. Have lines, the lines block traffic and pedestrian flow, people end up in the street. The lines, as I've seen, are places where also conflict happens. And, I think that's an issue that's persistent in the community and other places that already exist, but I think maybe there's a way to just make sure that. We understand that if you had, for example, live music or a particularly busy night. And there was a necessity to keep people up outside in order to let them in, that we understand what that would look like, or that maybe we prohibit lines in excess of certain size crowd.
Or maybe you should have a security person then.
There's a ramp, you know, that goes up the side.
Yeah, but I'm talking about to be specific, like the lines outside of P&G's and McGillicuddy's are very disruptive to the pedestrian and even car flows at times of those streets, of Main Street. And I wish we could do something about that in retrospect, but in this case, just want to make sure that we're aware of whether you anticipate that kind of volume. And if you did anticipate that kind of volume and a line did form, how that might be managed such that it's not creating some of the same problems that already exist.
I was gonna say the same thing, she was saying. My plan is to utilize my security. If that should ever occur, I would direct them to that. They would already be taught to look for that and make sure they have them in order.
Actually, one thing, that I don't know, this would probably be an issue with your landlord. But, that stretch of sidewalk that goes uphill from that corner is probably one of the most dangerous places in New Paltz in the winter. Because the water comes off the top of the building and it comes down and it freezes, and the sidewalk turns into ice, and I've actually fallen there and hit my head. And I know other people that have fallen too. Well, it's just it's like steep, and the water comes right down, and when it freezes, it is slick, and the pizza place never bothered to take care of it.
So he and I communicate about the sidewalks, and the outside area, which I haven't even moved in fully, but I started to do some cleanup work for him, so.
So the gutters,
Yeah.
that's the problem.
Okay. All right, yeah, we'll take care of that. Mhm.
Okay, so just trying to word this into a condition, maybe can we, something saying that there'll be some sort of crowd control management.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, excellent. So I mean, I think those are the only two issues that I was thinking of including, but were there any other concerns the board has that we wanna add to this special use permit approval? Okay,
Do they need to wait for the ZBA to approve the variance prior, or can it just be a condition?
Remind me what the area variance is and just.
So the area variance is because in the B2 district, if you are located within 500 feet and you serve alcohol.
Distance to a church.
Distance to a church or a school, and there's both in this case, the Friends School and the synagogue
Got it.
are within 500 feet, so they're in the area variance specifically for that.
So if you're ready to have me, write a resolution of approval, we could either do that after the ZBA issues the variance, or we could put a condition in the approval saying that it's subject to the variance.
okay, yeah, I think we should do that and then can just.
Yeah, so if you're gonna wait for the variance, then we couldn't consider the approval until the 17th of December. If you wanted to put a condition in, then you could potentially consider it at the next meeting.
Yes,
That's the board's choice, however you want.
So moved.
so yeah, could I get?
I'm sorry, I just want to make sure that the conditionings that you mentioned, so one is around if there were a crowd outside of the building, for purposes of a line or queue or even like smoking or something, that there's, security and control. The hours of operation, since they're different than what's possible, because 4 o'clock is possible. If you're offering.
So it's my understanding, and Emily can certainly advise, but you can't set hours of operation for one business and allow another business to have different hours of operation because you're creating unfair, I mean, that's what I remember from my planning board days, but we can certainly confirm, but I don't believe you
Well,
can.
you got a special use permit when it's.
It's your call. I was always taught that you can't set hours of operation different than for two similar uses.
Yeah, okay, I was just saying, because the applicant,
Yeah,
you shared that
Yeah.
for hours of
Yes.
operation, we can memorialize those.
yeah, I mean, you can certainly put it in as in part of your findings, but I don't know that you can make it a requirement. But I'll defer to what Emily says.
Yeah, if it's
Yeah.
okay, well.
I can get you some of the legislation, Mary Lou was really adamant about that. Sorry.
Well, in that case, could I get a motion to authorize drafting of a resolution of approval with those special conditions?
So,
Second. All in favor? Aye. Okay, so we will see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that was for the meeting on the 3rd.
Yes.
Okay.
Next, we have PB 21-21. Prospect Street, Henry W. Division. So, you just start by walking us through the latest revision to the site plan here. Just.
Sure, so, at our last meeting, you had asked, for, 12-foot wide, shared driveway on Henry Du Bois, so that was the only change made. Previously it was 8 feet.
So you didn't move the houses back at all? There's no.
I didn't show the houses having to go back, the engineer told he could keep them the same way.
Okay,
I know the neighbor behind it expressed concern about the activity close to their houses, so we've been attempting to try to keep it up. Of course, if this moves forward and we move to site plan, the houses won't be these exact same shapes. These are just kind of placeholders that put in during subdivision review. So it's my intent to try to keep them close to the road. Close as possible, that works with the driveways.
understood.
I don't know at what point items that were brought up tonight are going to be addressed. Or
I'd like to go through them one at a time and then get an assessment of whether we think there's additional legal review, whether we think there's additional consultant or engineering review, or whether we feel confident in what we've been able to address so far. Some of them are elements of consideration and some of them are more engineering and or requirements of the application. I know often we have been presented things that in our review, we realize are complete and we have done our diligence on, but I think it's worth our time to look at it.
Yeah, absolutely.
The one very specific thing that was brought up by Ms. Gatto was the construction equipment access. Is it possible to do the work you're planning to do without having access through the new single driveway on Henry W?
I think we would create more damage trying to get through the woods to get to those lots. I know she says it doesn't, it's not a commercial driveway, but it's certainly not built to residential specs. It is 6 inches of item 4 with 4 inches of blacktop. That's very close to road spec, I would say, in the typical residential driveway is probably 2.5, 3 inches of pavement and maybe 4 inches of. So I don't think it's as tender, and I know we don't want to ruin it, and I certainly would take pictures of it before it starts and track it, compare any issues, but I mean, they're driving all their wood trucks on it right now. I mean, it's all the wood trucks are driving on that back now, so I don't think there's damaging it. And I personally feel that we can do it in such a way that it wouldn't damage it. But I do think trying to get up, especially to lot 1, without crossing that would be really difficult without blazing a path through the hole. That's something I can think about.
Or maybe something that, I don't know if we have access to the engineers of construction. They, you know, I think there could be an opinion on their part. I know that there's got to share their perspective, but.
I mean, I have the specs here of what.
I don't know how to interpret those specs as to whether.
Okay, and I.
We can make some questions for our engineer.
Isn't the same engineer that he's using? Is that true?
I guess we can respond to that after, or not after, but
Okay.
I don't know what that's comments about.
Oh, well, because, the person, what's his name, that came up here that gave a public comment, said that you were using the same engineer.
I don't think he's referring to me. I think he's referring to the village.
Yeah, that was about the village's studies. Of the sewers and stuff. I think he was referring to Bernier and Larry.
Right.
But you're not using Bernier areas for your.
No, they're the ones that are reviewing it.
Yeah, no, but at least making sure we're all.
I do have the specs for both like that, and maybe Bernier and Larry to comment on.
Yes.
If that makes you guys.
Yes, that'd be great.
For sure. I mean, we're getting on something that we permit and then creates damage.
Sure.
I also hear what you're saying about the other access and how complicated that might be, but let's learn what we have to learn.
However, even if our engineer, gives you authority to, drive the equipment over that. If you break an edge off it, it's your responsibility to repair
Of course, yeah.
But it would see, but the repaired version would be less optimal than the unbroken version, so maybe.
Well, it might be, but, you know, that would be up to the engineer to say, well, no, you're not gonna fix a 1 foot by 4 foot section. You're gonna do a full width restoration for 10 feet.
Yeah. Fair enough.
I mean, it happens.
Mhm.
Okay, so.
And
So you're assuming that it's necessary to put 4 houses on that lot. Which is-
We have a lot to get through here, I think the next issue that we should talk about is the sewer and flooding concerns.
Yeah, let's make sure we separate those two,
Very much
to
so.
talk about sewer and stormwater. Yeah,
Understood.
yeah.
If I may, I think one of your earlier presentations, I think you represented to us that you have already stubbed out the sewer into the sewer main in Prospect. Is that true? So there is a sewer main on Prospect.
Yeah.
It doesn't end at a deadhead manhole. Because you tapped into it, it's there.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the sewer. Things there, and the sewer was part of the Briner and Larios review that we've done already. But we can review and double check to make sure, I don't know if that's something Alex would do, or that we just have Briner and Larios maybe write a doubling up memo to say that this is.
Well, if the board
That, and
has,
they're very familiar with.
if the board has a specific question they want me to ask the village engineer, I'd be happy to.
Read the memos, there was a couple months ago
Yeah.
now, but,
So you're suggesting like they confirm there is a
Just
sanitary sewer pipe
just process.
that leads to the revision.
And then it's
Oh, yeah,
adequate where it flow, yeah.
What?
Go ahead.
I was just trying to find the most recent memo from our engineer, do you know?
Well, the most recent one is the one that you just got today.
They've got that stormwater, so I'm not sure if there's an older one.
They are,
There are a series of them.
yeah, they are in a file called,
Here, next one memo, third memo. Visions of policy.
It was also stated tonight that there has been no reports from the village engineer, but I think there have been quite a few.
yeah, the memo that was received today was specific to the rain gardens and the changes that were presented at the last meeting, but in answer to your questions, Zach, if you.
So,
Okay,
sorry.
It has been a long process, so I think it would be worth us going back through the file and make sure we have everything clear.
Yeah, so there is a file in the folder called Renier and Larios
I don't see that.
in the private for 21 Prospect Street. I'm looking at it.
it's in the private folder.
Yeah.
Uh,
And maybe this is some of the issues because I would assume that the board members were going things through the private, not the public. Because I was assuming that was the purpose of the private folders for the board members, so. And then for the public, the difference of private versus public is things like financial and other information that is not readily accessible.
I'm just thinking that rather than us try to dig through this now, maybe we should just go through it, afterwards.
Yeah, but if you wanna give me a list of questions specific that you would like answered, that would be helpful.
I guess the question we would like answered is that they could review the sewer engineering for the 4-lot proposal. And confirm that each lot has a proper connection and access. And that the capacity is capable of handling the 4 additional residential lots. I mean, it might not be the exact engineering question, but that's what think we're responsible for understanding.
And also that the site plan is correct in that it shows this ESS going all the way down Prospect Street and connecting on Henry W to the sewer main.
Mr. Griffin, when you when you stepped out into the Prospect sewer main, was there a representative of the village there to inspect the work as you did it?
It was the village contractor, that was doing the work on Prospect Street that did it.
Okay, so so the village contractor.
Village contractor was doing it while they were doing the work for the village, so I'm sure there was someone there inspecting.
Okay, so not you now. Okay. That's not true.
I wish you would consider clustering. I really wish you would. I understand you've been building this way for years. It's a kind of segmentation, really. And I just wish that you would cluster.
What is segmentation?
When you build a house, when you build these houses, you have a property and you build them one by one, and you construct them one by one. And it's sort of a long, drawn out process. It's very uncomfortable for everybody. And also, it's kind of a way of like piecemeal getting your approvals. And I
feel that that's more organic. It's, I'm not shoving big complexes down your throats. I think building like that, you grow with the community. I think that's a positive thing. I'm not segmentation. I don't know how that has anything to do with segmentation.
Well, I mean, I guess this is the things in for, so it's not. I mean,
And we should be considering it all.
the whole, but I mean.
That's what we're doing now.
The other properties around it. I mean,
Oh,
you know, I mean, and now that these are the people that are complaining about this, are the people who already. You know, sold property to build houses for. And I just feel like. What people need now are, you know, we need things that are clustered and smaller, so that. You aren't causing as much of a disturbance and. And this is really actually a really beautiful section of woods. It's small, but you know, it's rocky, it's hilly. There are people around here that really appreciate it. And I just wish you would consider that. I just wish you would. I mean, you can still make just as much money. I mean,
It's not about the money.
it is.
I think village zoning is inherently clustering. That's why I'm building here and not building on 5-acre lots out in the town. This is where
You are-
our zoning allows for this because we have the services and we're not using up acres of land to build a house.
Right,
We're
but
using
you're-
up a sixth of an acre. to
You're
build a
making
house.
4 separate houses where you could just be making 1 unit.
okay, I wanna refocus on the issues that were raised during the public hearing.
I just want to
Yeah.
comment that. The village has plenty of apartments being built. The village is. We need stuff that people have home ownership. I feel I'm providing
What
that,
about a duplex?
so I
That way,
understand your sentiment. I understand that there's land that's not developed that is being proposed to be developed, and it's hard to make that transition. I totally get that, but every property in this village has made that transition at one point or another. So I get it, and I know at every one of these meetings, I expect it, and I totally respect how you feel about it, but I disagree, and I think what I'm providing is home ownership in single family houses, something that's very rarely being offered in the village. And I think it's a positive thing for the village as opposed to apartment houses.
well, a duplex, what a duplex. It offers a homeowner a way of. Say they're not spot renting their.
Are you saying next, or are you saying a
A
2-bedroom?
family home.
I think at the end of the day, we have to take the application that's before us and vote on it.
I know, I'm just begging,
I just-
he owns a lot of property and he does this.
Okay, can we go back to the questions that we want to make sure are processed? So is everyone comfortable with what we've asked about regarding the sewer?
Yes.
Zach, may I?
Yes, please.
I think it's a really interesting, well, we have the stormwater question, if we segregate it from the sewer question. It is my recollection and understanding from both the plans and the discussions and the review by Brian and Larios, that we're not relying entirely upon the rain gardens as a solution to the stormwater management, that there are other pretty substantial engineering upgrades that are necessary to address the stormwater. And it might have been said that you're not, your responsibility is not to do work, but I remember it also being said that there was projected by the engineering reports to be an improvement in the situation. So I'd like to ask if you could explain what your perspective is on the stormwater engineering. We have our memo that we should all reread, if there's any additional questions to ask, and see if we feel comfortable with where that is. So could you please explain, in some brevity what your position is on that?
So I think what you're referring to is, the percentage of flow going towards the south, where that bowl they speak of is, and the flow going towards the north, towards Henry Boyce. And in grading this, we've diverted more of the stormwater towards Henry Boyce to try to alleviate the water going towards that bowl that is on the south side of Van Muller's property, and then crosses the street and goes on.
Which is the location of the prospective neighbors, the potential neighbors that came to the.
Yeah. And it's my understanding that the location of those storm sewers are part of a, they were part of a village right of way that went between Prospect Street and up to Grove Street, but they were sold to those adjacent owners. But my understanding is that there is a village right of way to the west of Prospect Street behind those property owners, and that the village does have access to that, and that goes down behind Mulberry Sled. That right of way, because there are stormwater controls pipes. So
Well, I apologize, can you just say that one more time, exactly where it is, so, because then I can verify it.
the village right of way.
Yes,
Sorry. There, I don't know the property owners' names, but to the south of the Mullock,
okay,
there are some storm sewer inlets that they're speaking of that are filling leaves. That crosses Prospect Street going towards the west. And then it follows down, keeps going west and then turns north and crosses Henry W. Du Bois. And then I believe is on the east side of Mulberry Square.
okay.
It continues north and then maybe goes down Mulberry Street.
And so the intent of your engineering is that it would divert water that is currently part of the problem that's happening on the east side of Prospect toward the north of the property, so that less water would be heading toward that culvert that apparently clogs and floods adjacent to the property.
Yeah, we specifically did that in order to, and then one of Bernier and Larios' letter from June 25th specifically addresses that.
Yeah. June 25th?
June 25, 2024.
You mentioned the outlets from the rain gardens and how they're oriented.
Yeah, so lots 1 and 2, the overflows are directed towards the bike path, but not right to the property line, and then there is a swale that would be to the south of the bike path that it would be able to then go into the manhole. I'm sorry, the storm sewer catch basin back in the corner. Yeah, in the corner. Lots 3 and 4 are tied in together so that 4, because 4 is lower. You know, they were saying how you have to go uphill to get Henry Boyce. So for, actually, there will be an easement through lot 3 before to tie in also to that. And
And lot 3 and 4, those are rain gardens also,
yeah,
right?
and I,
So my understanding of a rain garden is not a retention pond. It's not. It doesn't fill up with water. And the water stays there. It either drains through the bottom of it. And I mean, you establish some pervious surface there, you add sand to it, this is probably a lot of rock and clay. I mean, you dig them out and poke a hole through.
yeah, there is a drainage layer, for these, I think it's 18 inches. Of drainage layer, and then there's a soil, layer for the plants to, be able to live. And then there is a pooling area, so if it floods over that, there'll be, I think, 6 inches for pooling, and then if it can't do that, then it has the overflow.
There's an overflow. But below that 18 inches. Could that be conceivably, could that be sitting on a rock in this area?
Conceivably,
I
yes.
don't know, it
It's-
just seems like there's. a
Yeah,
rock.
it's shale, so it's not,
No,
it's not like hard rock, it's pretty, pervious.
and the only stormwater that is coming off would basically be from the lawns of the home.
Yeah,
Where do the leaders go? Where do the downspouts go?
So probably for site plan review, we will show that.
Oh,
So we can tie in, I know Bernier and Larios likes to pick the drainage coming off the driveways. That tends to be, yeah, you get the flow off the driveways and very much stuff.
But that just sheets off, and it sheets off into the.
Yeah, and then it could be pitched towards it.
Right,
Yeah.
right, into the garden, okay. What I'm getting at, I guess, is, how much maintenance would really be required on a rain garden? I mean, I understand a retention pond, you do have to get in there periodically, you have to cut the grass. Right, lighting grow, you gotta be careful of those.
There
These
is
don't strike me as that.
No, but there is a maintenance, we are required to submit a maintenance report of how it's gonna be maintained. That's part of the site plan review or with the rain garden design.
Okay.
The village requires that. And because it's part of site plan review, because it has to be approved, village is able to address that if it's not being maintained.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think what's coming up on this topic, and it's also true in the memo number 2 from Green and Larios, August 18th memo, is that they also refer to the fact that the site plan will, a detailed site plan review will occur on each lot prior to construction permit being issued, which will address in more detail the stormwater treatment for each one lot. So I think that part of what we're talking through here is what's required at this stage of approval versus what will also be required in order to do anything on those lots. So I can understand how that feels like a gray area for folks that are seeing this consideration without a level of detail that might allay concern even more. But I think the applicant needs to be aware that if you can't bring a detailed site plan to do anything on these lots that satisfies the engineering requirements, then you're gonna have a subdivision without anything built on it. Okay. That's your risk.
The plants really need to be kept alive in a rain garden. So conversely, if you plant them and then it doesn't rain and you don't get water and the plants die, then your rain garden is dead. So.
Yeah, it's a
you
good
have-
point. It's a good point. And a lot of the selection, plant selection is based on that, plants that are tolerant for very wet or very dry. And then that'll be shown with the species.
And that'll be the maintenance plan.
You generally will prune them. At least twice a year.
You can make sure that's in any maintenance plan that gets approved.
Check the ones that have already been pruned, see if they're removed.
That is one of the issues that, yeah, is that right? Yeah. The last thing has come up in more than one meeting, and I just don't, again, it's actually, you know, maybe at the point of approval of the subdivision, we're not able to address it more specifically, but the idea that building each home independently over whatever organic timeline evolves because of the business transactions required and plans and approvals, et cetera, could mean that the people in that community could be living with, you know, multiple cycles of construction for multiple years. And while that's within your right as the owner of the property and the developer, I just wonder whether there's any consideration, I don't do this kind of work, so I don't know the answer, but whether there's any consideration that could be given to make some effort to try not to prolong that community impact, because maybe not rising to the level of seeker consideration, but it certainly rises to the level of a pretty significant disturbance to a community over a potentially significant period of time.
Yeah, no, I can appreciate that concern. And we typically stick frame houses. That's just how I grew up doing it with my father. But we also have done houses, and like Perry has suggested, like panelized houses and that kind of thing. And I'm open to that. I get it. And I'm getting towards the end of my career building too, so anything to speed things up is as well. But I give you a concrete answer. I don't know, but I certainly, and if you guys want to think of a way to try to get me to, you know, try harder to do that, I don't know what kind of language that would be, but.
It sounds like, I think there's two variables. One is how quickly you can build a house, and two is whether you're doing them concurrently or completely separately over an indefinite period of time. I think those are the two variables that would address the issue.
Right, so it's my intention, when I can, is to be able to sell all the lots as soon as possible. I'm not holding on to any lots to do at a later date. So if I can find 4 buyers right now, I'll sell them to them to put the houses on. So I'm not doing anything to prolong it. It's just the market and finding the right buyer who wants the right house there. And then we can build all 4 at the same time. I mean, they'll probably
How
be.
long does it take you to build one?
Typically about 8 months, past the size. And you know, it's not all outside making noise. It's mainly the initial site work, foundation and framing, and then we're pretty much more inside. After that, but it is interesting. I get it. I just don't know how to address that without tying my hands to something that's going to be an ideal outcome for me, you know, as far as the house and stuff. I don't want to be, you know, made to do like a modular house or something like that. That would certainly be the quickest way, but I'm not sure if that's, I'm ready for that. Put in modular homes.
Right.
The duplex will be on that.
There any other issues that were raised that you wanted to respond to, or?
Sure. So there was some comments about the width of Prospect Street, and I'm not sure how I can. I'm not sure what it is. So there was mention of sketch plan approval potentially being expired. Well, I guess you guys will look into that. That comment was made. Yeah, and that's all I have in addition to what we've already spoken to.
I can verify for the board, I will find out. I don't know the answer, but the width of Prospect, we can find that out, so.
I know it's a bit of a digression, but it's pretty, the Henry W turns off of, you know, off my street, except the Old Rock. That Henry W, the new Henry W is tight.
Yeah. That curve is.
I have a medium-sized car, and there's a car there, it's tight. I clipped the curb already once, and it's on the bike curb with my tire.
Well,
It's not your fault, it's not whoever brought it here's problem, but it's tight.
I think once the signage and the markings are on, it'll be a little easier to navigate. It's just, it's all black right now, so it's hard to.
I'm sure it's code, you know.
Yeah, I mean, there's a DOT sector there. I mean, that's all being built.
It's tight.
But there's not really anything that this board can do about the width of prospects.
No,
So,
or the other.
right. Yeah. Okay, well, I think that's all then,
Oh, I'm sorry, there was the comment about the engineer conflict of interest, Perry's been bringing up about. I'm assuming, he doesn't say a name, but I'm assuming it's gotta be Bernier and Larios, because I don't think. Bob James does anything with the village anymore, it's been a long time. So I don't know how that needs to be addressed, but it's something, so. Sorry.
From Mr. Lario, that's not your engine.
No, he's the one, yeah, he's the one, and I,
But our attorney said,
right, and
that's
I,
not your engineer, you have it
right,
right.
and I've never hired him in the past.
Right, well, I worked for you anyway, Bill.
Not in the village.
And it actually, and I'm guessing, I don't know, but if the village was applying for grant funding, it would make sense. That would be the engineer that would be supplying the village the information, the grant funding. So,
Absolutely, that would be
and
common sense.
that, and same engineer is the engineer that reviews things for the planning board. But it's actually in the capacity as the village's engineer. There's no necessarily conflict there. Again, my opinion, but.
Yeah, so I think we need to go and gather some more information and then we'll have
Okay.
continued discussion about this either next meeting or.
Is there any information that we would like additional from Mr. Niffen? Just the list I have is more questions for the engineer. So I just want to clarify if there's anything.
I have two things I wrote down there, the bike path specs, I can forward those to you, and then just information on the sewer connections that were made.
Great. Okay. Yeah, I think that's all. Thanks. Thank you.
And then Emily, we could, that's for review and check that you have on any of the things that were raised as well.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Moving on, we have PD 24-17, 160 Huguenot Street.
Yeah, Mr. Noel wasn't able to be here, but he did drop off a set of the final plans for me. I had told him we were reviewing the decision and it may not be necessary for him to be here, so.
Okay. Well,
If he's not here, if you want to defer it to the end of the meeting, we can certainly do that. And keep going with people who are here.
This is one that we were just, you authorized a resolution from people, right?
right,
So it's just a vote.
yeah, so,
We can just move it to the end of the.
I had a new manager, changed my schedule. So I have to be at work by 10, which means I have to leave here at 9:30.
Understood.
It doesn't seem unreasonable, the meeting starts at 7. But just if there's any voting or anything you need me for, it's got.
Well, we have 5 members, so.
So I can go.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go at 9:30, hopefully before that, but.
We just have a lot of applications
yeah,
that are very complicated.
On 160, can you verify that the Historic Preservation Committee approved this at their meeting?
They sent me this morning, actually, they approved it yesterday. Great. So, yes.
yeah, so we have the resolution here. And this is the Jeff Noel seeks approval of a site plan for an addition to an existing single family dwelling. The proposed project adds a 26-foot by 12-foot family room at the south side of the house and extends the existing porch to 12 by 16. This resolution does not come with any specific conditions. Just has the usual general conditions. Does anyone need to take another look at the site plan, or are there any questions about the resolution?
No.
No. Okay, if not, I'd like to get a motion to approve the resolution of approval for 160 Huguenot Street.
So moved. Second.
Second.
Could we have
Got
a
it.
roll call vote, please?
Okay, Rachel, Amy,
Aye.
Rich,
Aye.
Terry,
I,
Zach.
Aye.
Uh-huh. I was thinking her.
Okay, so, yes, if you can sign this after the meeting, and the plans are here as well, so.
Sure.
We'll take care of that after.
Great, moving on to our next application, PB 24-21, 166 Huguenot Street. Yeah, can please come up. Hello.
I don't.
Good, could you just walk us through your projects?
Yes, it's replacing a deck and making it a little larger. That's pretty much it. The existing deck is the age of the house, it's about 34 years old. And needs to be redone. So, yeah, I mean, it is extending a little bit, but it's not extending beyond either side of the house. So it can't be seen from the road. You can't see the existing deck currently from the road. And it's just gonna connect a back door that right now has its own separate staircase. So it just makes sense to just kind of extend it. And it's not coming out any further than the existing deck is right now, so. Just increasing a little bit to the one side, that's pretty much it.
And is that site plan you have there the same as this?
Well, these are just the engineered drawings of the.
Okay,
Yeah, I did submit a site plan as well, I don't have a copy of that with me.
right.
You have.
That's what I had.
Yeah.
And Alex did accept that as the site plan. He does, for the deck itself, he has the engineered drawings for the construction of it, but.
Yeah, and I submitted, I think, 2 copies of this for over to the village.
electric and water, septic all drawn on
Yeah,
the,
and that's on the front of the house.
yeah.
Yeah.
Any lighting on the new deck?
The only lighting would be actually on the stairs, is it the riser? Yeah, so that's it, so there's not gonna be any additional lighting, and I think that's kind of like a look, just so you can see it, but it really won't be casting any light. And I'm not looking to put any other lighting that's not. There's 3 lights in the back of the house right now, and they're remaining, and all of those cast down, so it's not. Not very bright. Or discerning.
Have you gone before the historic preservation? I don't remember.
You know, I did, but it was probably about a year ago, because when I first started the process. That's what they said I just needed because I was on Huguenot Street. And then I passed that, and then they said, you go get your building permit, but then when I went to get the building permit, or the contractor. They said no, because you're increasing the footprint a little more, you. Gotta get, and drawings and that type of thing, so.
So I'll check with that board if they want to re-refer, or if they want to just go with their original review.
Not a planning share.
Yeah.
Okay.
plan that was shared with HPC is this one?
Yes, but it was my drawing. So it was the same, but now I have a. So nothing changed from the original, and I think when I met with them. Once again, their concern was, can you see it from the road? No, you can't. My property does go to the back to the rail trail, but. About half my yard it's like wooded, so you can't see, I can see it when the leaves are down. If somebody's, well, I might be able to see a little bit, but you really can't see my property even from the rail trail and in the back.
Okay, well, we can do a few things tonight, at least. Could I get a motion to classify this as a seeker type 2?
So.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And can I get a motion to set the public hearing for? Well, I guess maybe we should discuss this first, like, would you be able to?
We probably, because of the HPC, we probably should set it for the December,
Yeah.
17th meeting, just to.
Yeah. And then that would give you a little more time to send out materials and post notifications and stuff. So could I get a motion to set the public hearing for December 17th?
So.
Second. All in favor? And do we, I mean, I think it would make sense to authorize the resolution or authorize creating the resolution of approval now, so we could have it ready at that meeting. And if the HPC has their determination, then we can just finish it all right then. Is everyone in agreement? Okay. Could I get a motion to authorize our attorney to draft a resolution of approval?
Second.
All in favor? So I think, yeah, we will send you all the information you need for the public hearing and reach out to the HPC, and we'll see you back here in December. Hopefully to finish everything off then. Okay.
And I'll email you by the end of this week, the notice that you have to post on your property and mail out to.
Okay.
Any bounding owners within 200 feet of you, send a notice.
Right.
So
Okay.
we'll send all that by Friday.
All right. Very good. Good. Thank you very much.
Next up, we have PB 24-07, 147, 149, 151, North Chestnut. Still here.
The record so Obama, full up on the study in favor, as the team's joining me. I am joined by our friend architect and David Burke, the Athens engineer. On Zoom, we do have Frank Licciotto from Labella, and we also have the owner Buddy Works as well. We are before you tonight for a continued review for our applications for subdivision use of a lot merger, site plan approval, and special permit approvals. We're proposing a commercial and multi-family mixed-use project. Again, connected with the Agway property. It's been a few minutes since we saw you in September, so hello. But we've been busy working with county and other local agencies to move the application forward. We did detail this in our November 12th submission, so we met with the Ulster County Planning Board for the Gateway Committee meeting. That was on October 15th. Then we also met with the Design Review Board and Historic Preservation Committee on the 21st. And then we also had a meeting with village staff and some of the folks from Trailline who are here tonight for later application to discuss some shared infrastructure and services, which we're excited to talk about in part and sort of working into the project designs. So based on that October 22nd meeting, and again, comments that the board has presented in those in the zoning board too. In particular, we were talking about streetscape improvements, bike lane, shared access and shared infrastructure. So Mike and Dave will speak to some of those project provisions, but we are really here just to kind of give you a full sort of update about where we are. So Mike, maybe you want to take a stab since we've got the boards, just to kind of update the bike lane, but we were We can show you this stuff.
And I do have a paper copy of the board members have one in front of them.
Please, sure.
Yeah.
Generally, the site plan is generally the same overall, except for the southeast corner of this project where before we had our own entrance, here's the 145, more Chestnut, previous entrance here. Actually, it is their entrance. So what we've been talking with those folks to shut this entrance and kick back about 20 feet that will access off of it. So essentially, this would be the shared entrance. Secondly, some of our drainage that we were bypassing that come across Route 32. We had a bypass pipe that was going through our site, which actually intercepted some of 145's drainage coming back onto the site. We're consolidating that drainage on the 145 site to bring it back to Mill Creek. Aside from general stormwater adjustments that we did in response to the engineer's comments and planner's comments, that's generally the site plan changes that we see since the last time we see it.
No, I'm just glad to see that you were able to work out a agreement with the property itself. Great.
And
maybe
for the board, we do have the engineer of that project here for another project. But he has offered, if you have any questions of him, he can answer them.
And I mean, we're still working out the fine, the fine I's and T's for the shared interest agreement.
Sure.
We've actually traded drafts with, in council also here, so we've traded drafts on that. So hopefully there's also a grading component, but again, it's all in the intent of sharing the driveway.
Well, or was there more,
I think just for the presentation, I can give you a brief summary of some of the other changes. We mentioned the driveway, we do have some updates to the open space and landscaping areas. So we're sort of based on the meeting with the agency BRB, we had so a lot of work that's going to go into the updated renderings, so we will be submitting those to you. But a lot of those, as you may have seen, there was a good host of comments that we got, which were all positive about the application, so we did have a good list. I know, David, do you want to kind of speak maybe to that meeting, just for the benefit of the board, about that?
I think you've seen those, yeah, sure, thank you. I think you've seen the letter. There was a couple of minor comments, one of which was the rail on the top of the building needs to be moved back. But generally, everything was positive, the fenestration, the timber siding. The only change really that's been made is that there's some landscaping that's been added here. We've kind of increased the public plaza to increase the kind of amenity for the public use on the right side here by sharing this entrance. So by and large, it's the same building with a little bit more landscape in front.
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple references in the memo from the DRB about checking back in as the design continues. So is that something that's sort of their planned touch points that you have there?
We'll certainly, yeah.
We're not going to govern those necessarily, but I don't want to let those pass by either.
Yeah, to the extent that there are, we're pleased to reappear there, we have no issue with that whatsoever. Hopefully we can try and get a little more definition on the site plan and sort of work towards the secret process as we move this project ahead. But yeah, we're pleased to reappear before them before any determination would be made with regard to the approval of the site plan.
And this was not a final review. This was sort of preliminary to just gather information. So we will ask them, this board will ask them for a final review of the final plan.
Okay.
We do have one other presentation, just briefly. Again, we have Mr. Picciotto.
Question before we go. So the shared driveway, this is an exit only for your property?
No, it's two-way access and egress for both properties.
Okay, so someone could come in here and access the southern parking area.
Yes.
But they can also access the southern parking if they came in there and to
and then they would exit there too.
Interject for it, the 145 project, when it was originally approved, was an exit only.
Yeah,
And through the consolidation and talking with the traffic consultant who worked on both projects, that's gonna now become a full access drive. If you remember, with 145, we were originally planned to be 145, but the DOT required us to only be right in, right out.
yes.
So now with the combination of this project, reducing the curb cuts on 32, they were agreeable to making it a full movement access drive, so it benefits both projects in that regard.
Okay, so I was trying to.
And for the board's knowledge, 145, once this is all resolved, will be coming back to this board for an amended approval of the site plan, so.
And this access circulation, the bike lanes were reviewed at the county planning meeting, the idea being to have DOT in the room, so the DOT was there together with county planning, and so you sort of had all of the potential, folks of the road, kitchen. To kind of be there to see this, as we were talking about protecting bike lanes versus, how that was all going to function and on-street parking, so. That may be too with a revision that you'll see forthcoming to try and make a consistent corridor. Throughout, and I understand that the town and village collectively may be submitting requests to reduce the speed limit in the area as well, based on feedback and discussions with DOT. So things that we've recommended, our consultant has recommended, being put forth, because I know it's a tough push with DOT.
And then with regard to this, and I'm sure the traffic folks can speak to it, but just the line of sight when exiting these the driveways, whether there's street parking or what looks like instead of street parking, there's this area here. I'm finding often leaving Mulberry Street where Zero Place put in that on-street parking. The on-street parking has its own benefit, but it also has the effect of making that line of sight when you're making that turn difficult. So I'm just assuming that they've kind of thought that through there, but wanted to make sure we put attention to that. Given that it's a two-way.
Frank, want to speak to that? We have a traffic engineer on.
Yeah, I know that.
We can't hear it right now. One sec, Frank, we can't hear you.
You might be on his end. I think he's the only.
Hear me?
Yeah,
Sorry about that. Good evening, everyone. Frank Filiciotto with Labella. The board member, I believe it was Mr. Suoto, talked about the on-street parking and the sight lines. This is one of those common things that we see in certainly in urban areas, and then in areas that are transitioning to become a little bit more urban. There's on-street parking all along Main Street in the village, where sight lines from time to time might be a little bit more difficult. The idea there is that speeds are relatively low, and that's what we're trying to achieve here on North Chestnut with a request to reduce the speed limit, is to create a little bit more of a calmed environment so that, yes, when there's on-street parking maneuvers happening, and there might be less sight distance than in an ideal case, the situation is not an adverse one. The one thing to note about on-street parking is it's not a permanent fixture. We're not putting a sign there. It's not a building. It's something that comes and goes. It's fluid. So typically, on-street parking is not treated as a definitive obstruction of sight lines. If you think about, New York City, for example, or any other dense urban area, if you had to meet the AASHTO requirement for sight distance at every intersection, you'd never have on-street parking. So it's a little bit of a negotiation and a little bit of an understanding. And certainly as this corridor develops and becomes a little bit more urban, you're going to have elements like on-street parking coming into play, which in turn reduce speeds. They create those side frictions that help calm traffic in the area. So I think it's a net positive here, especially, and this is something that came up at the DOT meeting is just consistency. The DOT wanted to see the corridor developed in a consistent way. So what we're working on with, the properties next door is to come up with a plan that's holistic from top to bottom, so that you don't have periods where you're moving parking from one side to another, or it's protected in one area and against the curb in another. So, we think it's a net positive. We think it adds value. It creates that type of environment that the village is looking for. And what we can do is in certain areas, and we did this on the 145 project, is we've removed a space or two to allow that sight line to increase right at the driveway. And we can look at doing that so that we're kind of, meeting halfway there.
What it looks like, thank you for that explanation, and what it looks like in the drawings here is that you've removed the spaces, but you've created sort of a bulge of the curb that comes out into so it almost has the same effect. Maybe it has actually a permanent effect of that sightline construction, so just, but I hear everything you said, that it's not designed to be, can't be designed to be perfect. Just make it a point that the way traffic currently comes down 32, absent a change in speed, pulling out of there as many times as you would be pulling out of there, it has to be a super safe exit in both directions.
Did the DOT say anything about extending the sidewalk? Because the sidewalk pretty much ends once you pass Zero Place. And then there's that narrow bridge over to Terry 13 where there's no room at all.
We talked about general interconnections. I didn't speak specifically to DOT, but we were talking about collectively because there was some discussion between us and the trailing folks about potentially consolidating one access point for the rail trail. So while that's still sort of in its infancy and we're discussing it, we're certainly pleased to sort of kind of introduce that. It was just trying to figure out how we would tie that down, getting into, Bill's center, so to speak. So we did speak to it, but it wasn't about extending it the other direction. It was really connecting it and where it could connect the rest of town crosswalks to that extent. But DOT wasn't really involved in that as much as it was really a focus on the bike lane aspect. If you recall, DOT really didn't want a bike lane, or to the extent they didn't want a protected bike lane. So it sort of was the focus of that discussion.
The tributary 13 will always be a hindrance because there's no easy way to bring a sidewalk across that area.
Pedestrian bridge.
Again, that's why I was saying using the word easy way. There is no easy way to do it short of that, and that will take essentially coordination and funding.
So I think at this time, we should just go through our, the memos we received from our consultants. Starting maybe with traffic, since we're on that topic. We received a memo on October 29th, so I guess it did not factor in these recent changes. But there were a couple issues raised or questions, additional questions that were included. Did you receive this report?
Right. Yes, Mr. Chairman, we have the DTS Provident report. We did respond to it. There were a few comments in that letter that required a little bit more lead time than the filing deadline for this meeting would allow. So in those locations, we explained that the information would be forthcoming, and that we as soon as we got that, the required information, for example, DTS asked for a crash history analysis. We need to submit a FOIL request for crash data and do that analysis. We could not do that for this meeting, so that information is forthcoming. But in general, the letter, having worked on several projects now in the village, we were able to predict a lot of the main issues that DTS would have, and tried to build them into the traffic report ahead of time. So I'd say the comment letter was fairly straightforward. There's not really many concerns here that I see. We do need to provide some more information about loading operations. I mentioned the crash data. Right when we were preparing this response, our response letter to DTS's letter, we, got word that the shared access driveway between the two properties was even more possible than it had been thought to be. So going forward, we're going to be submitting a revised analysis that takes that into account. So there's some things in motion that we need to complete for the village and for DTS, but none of it, there's no showstoppers. In other words, we believe we can adequately address all the comments for the next round.
Okay, great. And does that also include some analysis of like emergency vehicle movements, like fire truck movements? I was just looking like it might look a little tight to get into that parking lot from the south side.
I could answer that. We did provide a fire truck turning movement in a submission, but we don't have turning movements for other types of vehicles like garbage trucks and so forth. So we could provide those later next submission.
Okay, do you mind if I ask, so regarding fire, this is a concern that was raised by the building inspector and the fire inspector on other projects. But the way the building is designed with that large sort of courtyard area, for lack of a better way to describe it, I think you know where I mean. Is there's concern with fire fighting capability if there's a fire on the back side of the building or on the interior because of the ability to get a fire truck close enough. So I'm wondering if you can somehow, not specifically at this moment, but address firefighting capabilities for those areas, because you certainly can't get a fire truck where you can extend the ladder out close enough to.
You don't write like the V.
Yeah, the inside of the V, essentially. Yeah, exactly. So that has been a concern that's been raised by the inspectors on other projects, and I just, looking at it, I had the same question that they've had on those other projects, so.
So I guess that answers the questions I had about the traffic studies, and sounds like we'll be getting more information on that soon.
Can I ask a question about that? Make sure I
Yeah.
understand a couple things.
Yeah.
One is a pretty small question, but in looking at the, and Frank, are you also from Creighton Manning? Is it, or is it the firm change? He changed.
I changed.
So who did this work, the Creighton Manning report? You did it?
So I completed it while I was at Creighton Manning, and the project has since moved with me.
Okay, cool. And so looking at just question about the future volume generation.
Sure.
And two questions about the solution to the traffic issue. You know, many of us live these locations, and so you find it, you know, without believing the science, you find it almost impossible to believe that the changes can be considered so modest. But I know that that our DTS Providence folks also reviewed the generation assumptions and said they were valid. But the one very particular question I had is, in table 2, other planned development projects, is the thing called SUNY New Paltz Apartments, is that the assumption of the proposed new large housing, student housing or family housing we've been talking about on Route 32 South?
That's correct. Yes,
the 700 residence building over there?
Yes, that's the one that straddles the village and the town line, I believe.
Yeah. Okay.
Those assumptions were based on yes, that report was completed, I believe, back in 2022. So those assumptions came from that report.
So, and it says that only 4 trips would be generated from that location. And I would have to cross-reference that old report, from that applicant. But 4 trips just seems like very few trips from a 600 occupant facility.
Yeah, I mean, from when you think about that project, you know, it's somewhat not officially affiliated with SUNY New Paltz, but the purpose of it is to provide housing for people affiliated with the campus and with the college. So both of those being south of Main Street, predominantly the main, distribution and assignment of traffic is going to occur well south of this project that we're talking about. And if you think about it, there's no real, unless you have a few commuters potentially who, are traveling back and forth maybe to home and they happen to live there. It's it thins out north of this site where there's not a lot of reason to go north beyond our site from that particular building. So it's probably a very small percentage of the peak hour traffic, probably 5 or 10%, and that's how it works out to be for. It could be a larger number throughout the day, but during the peak hours, that's what the assignment essentially worked out to be, 4 trips during the peak hour, based on where it is in the village in relationship to this project.
And then I guess my fundamental question, just to make sure I'm understanding, if I read the report, I see the recommendation, I see the table 3 level of service tells us that, there's some places that go from bad to way worse. Primarily around Main Street and 32 intersection, we were just discussing with the other applicant. And am I correct in understanding that if those signals were properly programmed, as you call it, optimized, they would go from being a level F to being a level D and have a third of the wait times just by optimizing the signal? Is that what this? We're not engineers at this, but I'm making sure I understand what you're saying. And then my question B is, how do we make sure that happens? Because it seems like it would be dependent on success.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the recommendations at that intersection have been repeated from various applications in this area because we all recognize that is the solution. I think since we've had a dialogue with DOT, we can certainly, and they've requested the traffic study, and as they've requested the traffic studies of preceding applications, it is not something we or the village can effectuate. It's really something that DOT has to believe is the right move and decide to do it. A lot of times they take a wait and see approach on these types of things. They wait to see that the development is actually constructed and occupied and that traffic conditions are actually as bad as the forecasting is saying they are. Again, our models are pretty conservative, so things may not materialize exactly how they are on paper. So before DOT goes out and commits that effort, sometimes they take the wait and see. So it is something we could put on DOT's radar. We have the dialogue with them, obviously, through the highway work permit process. We're happy to do that. But we can't effectuate it ourselves. It's their property. It's their signal. So the best we can do is make the recommendation and let them determine if they're going to do it.
That was the same problem we ran into with the speed, right? There was another recommendation to reduce the speed. Of course, that's the whole intent and core of what's going on. So the town both went one step ahead and coordinated jointly to try and, again, because it has to come from.
And so it kind of makes this board have to say, our consideration of the impact on traffic is without the optimization recommendation, because it's only your recommendation. And what I'm hearing is that it may or may not happen, and it may or may not happen until after the building is built and occupied. So I like the idea of it, but if it's not something that's within any of our control, it doesn't sound like it's something that can inform our consideration.
So if I may, Frank, maybe speak to the existing conditions, the no-build conditions, that might also help illustrate sort of the realities, right? As you explained, you're seeing these features in real time now, right, versus the application or the improvements. So maybe that can help sort of tie those together, Frank. You're on mute, Frank.
Sorry about that. Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, when you look, the comparison that every application needs to make, or the board weighing the application should make, is the comparison between no build and build. No build is loaded with all of those other projects that are considered other developments. So, you know, it almost becomes, you know, what is your fair share contribution to the impact that you're having? We don't have the impact from existing to build. We have that impact from no build to build, which isn't as great. So I think this is the classic example of there's just a lot of activity in the village. There's a lot of interest. There's a lot of great projects that aren't just, you know, automobile generators. There's a lot of multimodal projects going on, especially projects that are literally attached to the rail trail. So we didn't take any credit. We didn't say, hey, 25% of our peak hour trip generation is not going to get in their cars. They're going to take their bikes or walk down the rail trail into the village. We didn't take credit for that because we wanted to be conservative. But the types of developments that we're seeing here are, you know, are nodding to that type of behavior, trip making behavior. Is there's another way to get into the village other than a car. And I think the site plan bears that out, the connections we're making. So again, you know, it looks bad on paper, but there are a lot of considerations that are being given to lessen that vehicle footprint from this project and the one next door to us. So I hope that explains it. It's not as easy as just looking at what it is now and what it could be in the future and saying, well, that's your impact. It's nuanced.
Yeah. I understand the no build versus the build part, and just in that one particular intersection, it's still a 30 or 40% worse impact from the no build to build. And so I don't think it's insignificant. And I think that as long as we have a location that's not connected by a sidewalk, you know, the multimodal question is still. And that not connecting by a sidewalk is also out of our control regarding the application and our approval. We just want to make sure that, you know, that's aware. And I promise this is my last question, but what is I know the data to support the assumptions came from multiple studies that we integrated to make this one. But what is the time of year that these are conducted? Because this time of year is a pretty significant traffic effect in our town.
So good question. You know, traffic studies are a function of, for private development, are a function of, you know, when the application is begun and when the consultant is brought on board. But what we always try to do is seek the most typical day and typical time of year. We number one, we always will count when schools are in normal session. We will not count around major holidays. So there might be a you know, 5 or 10% variation up or down throughout the year, you know, given just normal trip making behavior. But for the most part, if you stick to typical days throughout the year, that's all considered valid. You know, we would never count on the graduation commencement from SUNY New Paltz in and around that weekend. It's not typical. You have parents in mass coming up. We know that traffic's going to be bad, but that's not a typical occurrence. We also know that Christmas related traffic is going to be present in a few weeks. We're not going to count around that time. So, you know, you might have one data point in April, one data point in October, but for the most part, that's considered a typical day and valid for a traffic study. That I can say, you know, for certain, there's nothing in there that would be considered atypical or one-off.
While school's in session, it's like the other rule of thumb too, is make sure there's, you know, sort of operable conditions.
You hear all the studies and the explanations, but then when you're sitting there in a car on Friday afternoon trying to drive through New Paltz and not moving, it's hard to believe. So.
Yeah, as mentioned, your consultant reviewed our comments, right? And the idea is to work through that. We certainly appreciate that feedback, right? You're living it out. That is the no build condition, and these are the recommendations that are being put in. Again, that meeting, the Gateway meeting was designed to get the, I have the DOC physically there and here, not just from us, but the village was presenting, its comments there. We had Mr. Baden, we had the chairman, we had other members there, so we were able to kind of, help try to impose the will and say like, listen to us, this isn't just this project, it's a quarter. And that's part of the, the broader issue. We're building our site, we're trying to respect and help, encourage the quarter and get it there.
Thanks. One other question I had about the traffic was like, it was noted in our consultant's memo that there were more parking spots than required. What was the reasoning behind wanting to include, what was about 20 additional parking spots?
That was it, land bank of 11 additional.
Okay, and those 11 are land bank somewhere, or where would
We have 11 on street and 11 land bank, so there's 160, because I think that may have changed slightly based on Fox County, but.
So there's 9 land bank here, and then I have 2 in the rear.
okay,
Meaning we're not building them, but there is a need.
Initially.
right,
Initially, right.
right, and so without counting those, how many? Okay, 157. And it's required. 140.
So the calculations we have parking spaces required for 120 units is 175. If you take the on-site parking reduction qualification, which is a multiplied by 1.2, you come down to 146.
They're agreeing that based on ITD data, 140, I'm just reading from their model.
Yeah.
Based on ITD data, 146 officers should be adequate to accommodate the project, so we're actually trying to build it at less than, or at least construct less than it would be otherwise, sort of 500.
I see. Okay. Yeah, just thinking about how we can maximize the amount of green space on the lot and still make it convenient for everyone.
Yeah, that was our intent by taking the shared parking.
Yeah.
Multiplier, and then, so we're right at the line where we should be.
I see. Okay, were there any other discussions about traffic?
I have a
or
question,
parking? Yeah.
kind of relates to this. I'm wondering if you've given any consideration to where children are gonna wait for their bus for school. Where the bus is gonna pick up the kids.
So that's a great question. I'll certainly, I think, defer to Frank, just to kind of pick up on that, because it's, sort of a core question too. We had similar questions with,
Right, and this is a busy road, and I wanna know where the kids are gonna be hanging out. I'm also interested in knowing, because they have those apartments. And some of you tenants might not have cars.
Yeah, but they-
Have public, if you can't come on 32.
yeah, I know David Wolf was running, the rounding is being adjusted to respond to the DRB's comments, but just to give you a sense of the plaza, because it is a much more, we're talking about a protected bike lane with on-street parks, you are creating some of these buffers, but the idea is there will be some of that activation, though. I think Frank is hearing your comment, and we'll make sure that that's supported, because we even talked with the county.
I'd like to see a covered area for people in the buses personally.
I think and it's twofold too, right? It's the students, but also there is some coordination with the county when it comes to the bus services coming through, so I know that is
Yes.
something being.
So as you know, we are excited about providing this almost public park-like experience on Route 32. We have room there for natural vegetation, for planting and for seeding for the public. So we do have space for kids to wait and get on a bus. We're also, as you know, we're making area for bikes as well as.
So that should be on the site plan where there's gonna be a bench, where there's gonna be a covered area where they're actually gonna hang out when they're leaving and.
If there's room for that, we can do that.
I know this has been discussed with the other projects. Was there a UCAT stop assumption particular to your buildings, or is it?
We discussed that actually at the Gateway meeting.
Yeah.
So, UCAT would operates on an on-call serve basis, so as people flag down.
Yeah.
They prefer to do that rather than to have designated stops, but they are prepared throughout that corridor to do exactly that. There is correct me if I'm wrong, there's a stop at zero place, but obviously people are not gonna walk from this stop.
But that was there because of the parking.
But we did discuss this at the Gateway meeting, and the answer from the county planning department would be that it would be able to be flagged down. And they find it safer for the bus to just stop in the street rather than try to pull into a shoulder, because then people try to pass the bus, but when it's stopped. So
Yes, but I also,
I'm only saying what they said.
we wanna have.
I'm not arguing about it.
Covered bus areas, so people are waiting in the rain and snow.
Oh, no, yeah, no, but I'm just saying this was for the bus itself. I'm not talking about the waiting area, but the bus itself, so.
And all of this only looks and feels the way we're discussing it if you can slow traffic. You know, if people are moving at 45 miles an hour past what we're looking at right now, it's not bad experience.
The DOT,
If you're going 30,
the
if you're
DOT,
going 30, then it feels more like what you're having.
the DOT did seem to indicate that they would support that. And I'm working with both boards to, actually, next week, I've written a resolution for them both to co-sign to get to the DOT,
So truly have their attention around the whole impact of the NVR on this corridor.
Yeah.
Then it should go from there and consider the contiguous sidewalk consideration and all the way to this light optimization.
Yes.
Because if it does any one of the things, it's not as helpful as all of them, and so if we really have their attention, right, that would be great.
At the moment, it appears we do. I'll leave it at that. So. Did you want to address any of the capital letter?
Yeah, I think we should go through that as well. This was from October 11th, so. Also not the most recent, but probably not a huge difference here. This went through the areas that were marked as wetlands. I mean, there were a couple questions and requests in there for your environmental engineer. You know, applicant should provide information and analysis regarding the source water, construction, flow path, and function of the drainage ditches. Not sure. Habitat. And there's also a request to provide an assessment of federally listed threatened and endangered species utilizing the Fish and Wildlife Service information. I don't really think there's going to be much there, but I'd like to just.
I think Zach, that was it.
Response,
Yeah,
Oh,
there's a
okay.
response memo in the November.
Okay.
Yeah, we have a November 11th date, letter from Mr. Nowicki, who prepared, or Ecological Solutions LLC, who prepared his itemized responses to the capital letter.
Yeah, the endangered species and habitat report was updated with those species. We added those species to the EAF. We provided narrative on the source of those streams that flow onto the site.
Okay.
I'm not sure we hit every single mark on there, but
Okay.
That's
Yeah,
the
I
exhibit
haven't-
E in that.
I see that now. Yeah, I didn't review this yet, but great, glad we have that in the folder already.
We also plan on Mr. Nowicki at the next meeting as well. just to
Okay.
be able to address any.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be good.
Drag.
We'll have to do it.
Yeah, I'll find it in Vermont. I'll find it, that's right. like
It's
this.
fine. Let's see, and then there was also. Was there also a response to the SWIP memo from
Yes.
our?
Yes, the SWIP has been updated.
Okay.
We addressed every comment. There's a couple details that need to be provided with regard to the bioretention areas, but it's, you know, there's nothing show stopping there. It's more of the report itself and modeling of certain areas that weren't included in the model, providing under drains and the bioretention areas. All of that has been done.
Okay.
That's what I'm.
Yeah, that's the bulk of what's in here is that SWIP.
Yeah,
So we should probably ask our consultants to look over these responses and let us know if they're satisfied.
Yeah.
That was gonna be my recommendation that
Okay.
we send those response, this latest. To our 3 consultants to review and respond back.
Yeah, I think so too. Do we need a memo to do that, or can we just advise you that?
I wanted to wait for the board to feedback to do that, but now
Yeah,
we
yeah, I
have
think
both,
we
we certainly can do
do
it.
that. And then what other next steps do we have?
I have another question.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm just curious what the planned activities for the rooftop deck will be and what the hours of operation will be.
I can sort of let David try and address some of those, but we can definitely get that in some more specifics. I think some of the other things that we're gonna be providing, spoiler alert, is a list of explicit, I think it was mentioned by the board that we should lay out the special permit type considerations of the uses that may occupy the first floor tenancy, so we can definitely elaborate on that, but do you want to take it first? Stab at that, and also sort of identifying that we're sort of preparing or enabling it for green infrastructure.
We are, slow water retention or enhanced water retention, green, it'll be a, extensive green roof, that is a shallow depth. Not imposing too much weight on the roof, but retaining stormwater. So it it stays on site and not so much into, surrounding lakes and streams. In terms of the amenity on the rooftop, at the moment, we're talking about a shade structure and some tables and chairs for folks to get sun and enjoy the views. There has not been any specific discussion on hours, but we're certainly ready and willing to take your recommendations on that. And that's pretty much the information.
And the lighting plans also we're interested in.
Lighting plan for the roof, yes.
I mean, we did it, oh yeah, right, the roof specifically, we did add additional lighting to the last submission, but so they goes out for the roof as well.
And we're certainly very sensitive to light pollution. So we're right to, you know.
It's not being planned, it's like a party area.
Parties in the back.
Yeah.
Connecting to the trip.
Okay, were there any other questions from the board? I think if not, we should plan on reviewing full EAF part 2 at our next meeting, or maybe whenever we get the responses back from the consultants.
Yeah, that was a question. So does the board want them to be on our next agenda, or do we want to, given the Thanksgiving holiday? I'm suspecting we won't have responses back by the 3rd.
Yeah.
Do we want to just defer it until this, but was there something that you wanted to address at the meeting on the 3rd?
No, I think to the extent that the board is comfortable at that point with the board's comments, I mean, honestly, we want to come back and make sure that all those comments are there, so that we're not going to a couple and kind of coming back. So to the extent there, if the board feels comfortable at that time, making any type of determination, that would be the only extension, but that obviously comes after a part 2. So
Yeah, the board usually goes through the part two together, sometimes they kind of take different parts of it and then. We have that discussion and then vote on
Yeah.
that part.
Enough. Yeah. It was a long way of saying no.
Okay.
And at that point, we may also be at the point that we want to consider referral to the county planning board officially.
Yeah.
But that would be based on the responses of the consultants.
Right. Okay, yeah, I think it's probably unlikely that they'll all get back to us.
Yeah.
See that. Why don't we plan on the 17th and we'll go through the EAF part 2 then. Okay. All right.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Rich, I'll swap you if you want the Woodland Bottom ones, and I'll take those drawings back. Oh, yeah. Oh, that was the alternate member who's not here tonight. Thank you.
Like I have the full set, so throw it out on the table or.
Yeah, you know what, if you got a full set, do that. I'll get the rubber band for you, I apologize. We don't have made that big. Nice job. Thank you.
So nice small.
Okay, please give us a overview of the application.
Yeah, so my name is Dave Roberts. I'm the capital projects manager for Woodland Pond, and I'm the owner's rep for this project. I'm just going to do an intro about Woodland Pond and the sort of things that we're trying to achieve with these changes. And then Ken will and Amy will take over and go through the actual, the nuts and bolts of the proposal. I'm not sure if how familiar you are with Woodland Pond, but we've been a part of the New Paltz and Hudson Valley community since its completion in 2009. It's the only continuing care retirement community in the Mid-Hudson Valley to offer residents access to a full spectrum of supportive care options at such a high standard. We're proud of the quality of care that we provide and the broad offering of amenities and services provided to all our residents. Under the leadership of our CEO, Michelle Grimolio, we continue to receive national recognition as a continuing care retirement community and for our employees as a great place to work. I think it's interesting to note that almost 70% of our residents are from Ulster, Dutchess and Orange counties, and almost 90% from within New York State. The average age of our incoming residents over the last 3 years is about 80 years old. In the interim 15 years since we opened, the needs of our Woodland Pond community and market expectations have developed significantly. We have a very informed and engaged senior population, and the changes we're proposing are in response to ongoing consultation with our residents to evaluate what works best and what they'd like to see improved. So what does that mean in terms of what we're proposing to build? The dining, the additional dining rooms will provide more opportunities for fast casual dining, outdoor dining, while maintaining our formal dining. This in turn requires changes to our primary and auxiliary kitchens in order to serve an enhanced dining program. The health centre, we're planning for an expanded fitness centre, a new wellness lounge, an enlarged salon, including a massage room and nail salon. A larger exercise room with the capability for an indoor pickleball court with athletic. We're also adding a new multi-purpose performing arts centre that can seat 200 people with a raised stage and movable seating for theatre and musical productions, audio visual presentations and events. This is for use by residents and their guests only, so it's not for public use, but it's centrally located within our facility so that all members of the Woodland Pond community can use it. Also included in our plans is a new arts and crafts room with a dedicated kiln room and ceramics area featuring skylights for enhanced daylighting in the space. In the health centre, the improvements in the health centre include the addition of more centralised communal living and dining areas, the addition of kitchens that are more residential in nature, improved daylighting in common areas and access to outdoor gardens and an elevated terrace. These improvements are all in all areas of the health centre. That means in assisted living, skilled nursing and memory care. They also include newly designed landscaping associated with each of those areas. Our outpatient and inpatient therapy centre will be expanded and upgraded to improve the quality of therapy in those areas. There's also improvements and additions to the administrative offices to accommodate staff and supporting amenities such as conference rooms. It's important to note that the proposal does not add any residential units or will only require a nominal increase in staffing to support the amenities. All the proposed additions are attached to the existing building. They don't encroach upon the natural vegetation buffer that surrounds the campus. And the additions do not infringe upon the existing conservation easement. Our resident population are very focused on sustainability, and the new landscaped areas reflect this approach through the use of native species that are environmentally suitable for our region. Architectural features reflect the quality and character of the community, as well as the surrounding neighbourhood and village. In order to achieve the above goals, we've engaged the very best design team to partner with in this process. Ken and Amy and their team with LRC are obviously playing a major role, but we've also employed leading architects and interior architects in this sector to guide us through the process. In addition, we have obviously MEP, dining, food service and acoustic consultants to advise us. And the result is, we think, an appropriate response to the changing needs of our community, which we expect will support us in maintaining our position at the forefront of senior care in the future, and in turn be able to provide this service to our greater community. So thank you, and I'll pass it over to Ken.
So my name is Ken Pedimento from LRC. I've been before you before on some other projects, but what we wanted to show here is this is the campus as it is today. It's basically broken down to cottages, apartments. So you have cottages on the outside, apartments that are in the center, and then we have the skilled nursing and enriched housing over here, the health center component of it. So residents move throughout the different areas as they get older, depending on their needs, can use different phases of it. Our outpatient services are in here. Back when this was approved, there was an extensive review of the wetlands and the environment. There's conservation easements. There's all kinds of components on this to keep this project as green and as safe as possible and harmonious with the environment. All of the things you'll see today that we have additions, although there are 10 additions for about 12,000 square feet, I believe it is. 21,000, excuse me. They're all within the campus proper. None of them go beyond the areas that weren't originally disturbed. So all of the work is inside the central core area. So as David pointed out, and you can see here on here, we started to show where these are. We'll start on one end and walk our way through. The Wellness Center. Again, all of the services that we're providing are here already, just looking to be brought to the forefront of where they are today, as this facility is now just 15 years old. So now it's looking to become back at the forefront of that. So we have a proposed wellness center here. It's about 2,700 square feet. There'll be some outdoor areas around it on this side. Keeping the parking as it is, there is some underground stormwater chambers that were designed in the original approval that will be moved out into the parking lot, still to maintain the same. We've worked with Dennis and already talked to Dennis in some pre-application meetings about how to treat the stormwater and making sure we're matching, because there was an original discussion about moving stormwater to the front to still maintain the wetlands that are out front that are over here. We're maintaining that and keeping that. One of the things that we're doing throughout the project, you'll see for stormwater is we've installed rain gardens, bioretention areas. There's a rain garden in here, there's a bioretention area back here, but a lot of cisterns, underground stormwater chambers that will collect the roof runoff that Woodland Pond can use for its irrigation. And so it functions as a dual purpose. Instead of taking water out of the water system for irrigation, we can use the natural water that comes from the roof and treat it and put it back into the soils the way we want it to. So there are each of these projects where we've added it, as we've introduced a more native species, as Woodland Pond's own horticulturalists have gone and done test plots of what's working, what's not working for plant species. We've now started to integrate those into the environment here as well. So you have the first addition here, which is the wellness center, about 2,700 square feet. Then we have the second addition here, which is our administrative offices and some crafts. Again, although you see these additions on the outside, what we don't show, because we're on site plan and not building permits, are there is extensive interior renovations that are required to allow these. And what a lot of these done, as David pointed out, we've engaged with a general contractor already, because there are things like the pack in here, the Performing Arts Center, when it moves over here, that becomes other space. So there's going to be a flip-flopping around, because unlike a traditional new build of a project, this has to maintain and operate. Everything that's here, the residents aren't going to stand. David will get many phone calls if they can't get to the salon or they can't get to certain features. So part of the integration of what we've done, although they're identified in multiple phases, they're not intended to be done in a consecutive phase. They're intended as phases so that we can identify them as an individual phase, but it may go from the diet wellness to the dining, then over to, you know, this edition. It's not necessarily one consecutive order. So the second edition here is the administrative offices and arts and crafts edition. One of the things that we have out here that we've enhanced is the community gardens, and we're still working on the specifics as David's doing focus groups with the residents as to exactly what those are going to look like. But we're preparing a more adaptive and ability for residents to get access to their own small plots of gardens and be able to plant. The Performing Arts Center is here. It's by far the largest addition in square footage, as David pointed out, for 200 seats, but it is for just the residents and their limited guests. So there is no real offsite need for parking or any of that. There is one on site now. It's just becoming a little more sustained and not multi-use, where currently it's being used for a lot of things. Now they're being able to put it as its own thing to be able to have more performing arts opportunities in it. One of the things we've done around this is we've done stormwater treatment plans where we've done rain gardens. for the roof gardens there, that'll be part of the features outside, that'll have treatment and then connected to the stormwater system to mitigate any increase in the hard surface for the roofs or any of that. In there, there is a rework of the parking lot over here to move, 2 ADA spaces out into the middle. It's the same number of spaces for ADA, but there is a small loss in total spaces here. But I'll get to the overall parking count a little bit later. One of the things that we are implementing here on this side of this is a bike rack outdoor for both electric bikes, carts, potential future need for golf carts or mobility scooters. We've seen that they're riding tricycles now, a little more stable for seniors than a regular bicycle, but trying to create a covered area for them to do that. Woodland Pond also sees an increase in the EV bikes that people ride. A lot of the school students who work from the college ride them up, and they don't want them in the facility as a fire hazard. We actually talked to Alex, and we were talking about that and creating an outdoor location so they're not stored indoors. So that's over in here. We have an addition over here, F, which is that's the health center addition. This is a work on PT and physical therapy on this side of the building. Again, more of an outpatient thing, but giving them some more space in there because that program has grown as well. This is our only 2-story complete addition. All of these are 1-story additions. This H is an addition that's a 2-story, which is basically dining space and living space and some social space. And then what that required is it did change internally to some of the items. So we did have to put on a small addition over here because one of the units inside is being remodified. So the unit then moves over. It's not necessarily an additional unit, it's just a swapping of units and locations. This addition is a unique one in that this section of the building is 1 story. So they're adding a 2nd story on top of it to work with the memory care that is in that area over here. And this on the backside, G is our skilled nursing area. We are working on a garden area that's specific for the skilled nursing area and reworking some of that over in here. The dining area is our addition over here. These are 2 outdoor areas. I'll show you some architectural of that in a second. But the biggest rework here is the outdoor patio. We've tried to create one of the things that we've heard is there's a lot of what we would call in the commercial industry breakout spaces. Spaces where you and I can go and sit and talk, but not have everyone around and maybe look at something. There was a goal of the residents to have more, instead of a big open area where everyone can sit, more little nooks and crannies. So we've tried to create these small little spots with tables and chairs. Well, although it's in one area, it gives people nooks and sides and areas to sit off to the side, while maintaining the privacy of the residents that are on the side, as well as the food and the view that is in the group here as it is today. One of the things that we, in our early meeting that we had talked to, and I know Mike alluded to this in the other project, is fire access. We've worked with the fire department and we've come up with a plan where they can use, we're putting what they call grass pavers in the ground, which are concrete structures that are underground, but they're grass on the surface. So when you look at it, it'll look like grass, but for maintenance and vehicular purpose, it can be a truck can drive. This grass paver is going to be able to be built in here on this area here, so that they, as a fire department, can come in and come to the backside along this side of the building and the backside along this side of the building here. So while it's not required for code, we have residents, Woodland Pond is really taking steps ahead to try to further protect their residents and wanted to implement this as a future part of the project as well. The largest site work side is really the back road that's existing. We're reworking it. It's currently, as I will show here, parallel parking along the back and a 2-way traffic. This is the loading area of Woodland Pond, and there's an occasion of the truck comes out and goes this way and out and around and things like that. So in an effort to kind of keep that and maintain the residences, we're making this one way. From this section here down is one way. So this allows us to create angled parking in this section, and it gains us parking along here. It's net of 15 spaces, 17 spaces, thank you. Along this backside here, with some of the spaces lost here, and the 10 to 12 residents or employees that we believe we need, we're basically gaining 6 spaces overall on the project. So we believe, based on what we have more than adequate spaces for the future of this project. But what it does do is prevent and makes all the traffic for the loading go right up to the main drive, which is the primary focus of what was intended. And because they can't go here. These few residents are affected in the sense where they can't come out and make a right to go into the village. But through the discussions with them, having slower vehicles, less people around driving through, potential for no trucks, they're more than happy to have that change. So this section here is again going to be one way with parking spaces perpendicular or angled on the side. Talked about stormwater, we talked about fire. There really is no utility changes to this project other than a grease trap that sits currently under one of these additions that changes, that comes out. Water on the site was approved for way more water than what we had. And we've talked with Blue, and the water usage that the current facility has is way below what was ever anticipated through the secret documents. So we have no issues with the system that's there. But one of the things we are doing, that the mayor and the town board has put in, is that currently the site is facilitated with water meters on every one of the residents as well as the building. We're going down to the connection on George Daniskin Way and putting a master meter there, so that from that point forward, this becomes owned by Woodland Pond, and the village only has to read 1 meter going forward instead of multiple ones. A few more minutes, I would, if I can, to kind of talk through some of the architecture. On the left here is the wellness center. As it is today, this is the wellness center as it is in the future. As you can see, this is the addition here only. This is the current pool. This is the back side of this window here. There's very little change that occurs. The architecture is really designed to fit into the buildings that are there. This is the backside of the dining. You'll see on this side, there are currently 2 outdoor covered awning patio spaces. Those become the card spaces of the additions, and we put a pergola type addition in the middle to connect the 2. This is the existing entryway to the building. The main entry is just off to the left, which is right here in this rendering. This is the path that comes in. This is the larger height in the front, but it does match the heights of all the buildings around it and is consistent with the architecture of what is there. Below is the administration building B. Just comes off to the side, and this comes out here. As you can see, that is this one here. So again, it's pretty, they're all designed to mimic and match what is there. And the last one we have here is the health center care roof center, and this is this addition here. And this is the addition that comes off to the side. This is an existing overhang. The real addition is right here, and it does have an second story outdoor space for people to use. It is smaller than the actual physical space that's there because there are code requirements as to because of the residents on how much outdoor space there is allowed before you get triggered on the thing. So that is smaller than the outside footprint, but it does give residents the opportunity to come out on that open patio. So I will now be quiet and go back over to you guys. If there's any other questions.
No, that was extremely thorough, thank you.
How long does it expect the entire process of the improvements?
It's gonna be a few years. There's different funding sources and capital sources. So as they progress, and then, as I said, remember, you know, like dining is a perfect example. Dining has to operate. So in order for dining to happen, something else has to get done interior first. So there's a lot of things that where in a normal construction, you could say this could be done in a year or 2 years. This is probably a 3 to 5 year, if not a little longer, but I don't necessarily know that exact answer to that.
We're still working with our construction manager on phasing, but as Ken said, it's dependent on second phase funding. And once again, you know, in order to make sure that our residents' lives, they've got to be able to do all the activities that they normally do every day of the week throughout this construction process without being aware, you know, of noise, dust, and all that sort of thing, all those environmental issues that you have with construction while we proceed. So,
and the first phase is designed to start as soon as we can. You know, and the wellness is, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the first phase that we know is going to proceed. What we believe at this moment to proceed first. So that allows us the reaction of interior spaces to come along.
Could you ever consider?
Well, we certainly appreciate the access for the fire company in here. Would you ever consider doing something in here?
It's great you brought that up. So that was the original discussion with that. And we did look at the options. There's a lot of retaining walls in here, and I'm not sure how familiar you are. But from here to here is about 12 feet. There's a 6 to 8 foot retaining wall and another one as they stagger down.
Oh.
So it makes it very difficult to come in without doing a larger project. We had looked at trying to do it as part of this, but as everything is, in order to do this, that would turn itself into its own project that wasn't really on the scope and radar of the campus at this time for Woodland Pond. But it is feasible. We've come up with options and that are there so that as things progress, Woodland Ponds is definitely wants to implement them if there's another project that occurs in here that allows them to integrate that into that project. But it was important to them, since we were working in this area anyway, to make that happen in this area.
what this aerial view doesn't show you is that in those two courtyards, there are ponds and waterfalls, you know, using that change in level. So it's, you know, it's complicated landscape in there.
I understand that there aren't any new residential units or.
That's right.
or constructed in this project, but are there any investments and enhancements to a property like this that triggered the consideration of the village laws around affordability and percentages of affordability in a complex? Or is it's only
per residential unit,
Yeah, this is not classified as a residential unit.
how not?
Well, it is and it isn't. It's not, when I say it's not classified, it is a residential, but it's, and I'd have to go back to the actual code. There's a whole section on a specific senior housing situation. And I don't believe that these are, the affordable housing law doesn't pertain to these, to my knowledge, but.
well, in any case, there's no new ones.
Yeah, but there are no new ones proposed anyway, but.
It's, yeah, I've often been curious and just now that it's before us with this type of investment, but I guess that the law overall doesn't apply, let alone whether any of these developments would trigger a consideration for that.
To my understanding, I could certainly research it some more, but Terry's found knows, so, yeah.
Remember, the Affordable Housing Ordinance came in being in 2015, this was already built.
I understand that, but what I'm asking is there any retrospective application of that law in developments? Is there any, magnitude of investment or magnitude of application that we're approving? That where that comes in, I could read the code, I could read the law. But, the biggest issue we face in our village is affordability, and in particular, senior affordability. And, while this is lovely, I can't help but ask that question.
Some often it's a square footage percentage that triggers that sort of application. But when you look at the square footage that we're building here in relationship to the existing, it's actually pretty minimal.
And has the project and property ever considered affordability as something that was aligned with your mission?
I can't speak to that. I mean, we are a non-for-profit.
I understand that. That's one of the reasons I asked.
Yeah, and I can't speak to, what was done 15 years ago or actually in the planning 20 years ago.
Yeah. But that nonprofit status persists today.
Yes.
And the issue of affordability in our village persists today, so I'm just interested in.
We could look at it.
It's probably not relevant to this application, maybe I'm on a soapbox, but it's important to our village.
Understood.
Okay, do we think that we need to refer this to any of our consultants, any traffic or environmental?
Yeah. Well, sure. Definitely, obviously Dennis with stormwater.
Yes,
You know what I mean?
yes.
And the infrastructure. When you look at traffic, this had a full EIS that was done on it, or full environmental impact statement, looked at traffic and its impacts, and we're adding 10 employees. So it's not a large traffic change from what is there today, although the square footage has changed. It's the same number of units, it's the same number of people that are in and out. And those people, those 10 employees are over a 24-hour period. It's not even, so minimally, it's in my personal, professional opinion, it's a minimal traffic impact that was done during the full secret review that was done on the original application.
And you're speaking about traffic, meaning the impact of the facility on traffic outside of the facility. What about movement within the property? Is that something you all have studied and can present as, to clarify moving emergency vehicles?
Yeah, we
delivery calls.
Yeah.
And then we would take what you present and share that with our traffic engineers if we thought they should be one. If we thought it was important for them to do.
Well, again, just to talk to that, the only change in traffic patterns from, again, what was originally approved is taking this, which was two-way, and making it safer and making it a one-way.
And it's the same access for emergency vehicles.
Nothing changes.
Except they'd be going against the traffic if they needed to.
If they need to, only in this small section. And it depends on where they're coming from. With the new firehouse, they may come in here and just go right around and in. They may come in here and go right around and in. You know what I mean? There's nothing that prohibits them from going this way. It is, they do it on one-way streets everywhere if they need to. But there is very little change of this project to what was approved, and that's why, you know what I mean? So traffic-wise, circulation-wise, this is the only change. Everything else still functions, nothing changes in the front, nothing changes how an ambulance doesn't even come here, but drop-offs come, it actually creates a better area here for, it's covered for people who are waiting when a bus comes to pick them up or a shuttle to pick them up here. So there really isn't much in that regard.
I'll also add that I did a survey over several months. I can't actually remember the exact length of time, counting the number of vacant car spaces. So I did that twice a day. And we were always, between, I think it was like 97 and 115, 117 spaces were free all the time. So we have an excess of car spaces. So that isn't a consideration for us. And obviously if it was, that's something we'd address because we're trying to take care of our, our residents.
It is a benefit, I often talk about this, I do a lot of work on campuses, like New Falls. They're quasi-owned government campus, everything. If there's a problem, we don't hear about it in the public. They do. If they're not having walking paths, if they have problems with access, if they have problems with traffic movements, if they're having problems with the delivery vehicle going the wrong way, we never hear about it, but they do. And it's on them, in both good and bad, that if they ignore it, their residents get more vocal. And they have time, so they hear about it more and they make fixes. But Woodland Ponds has been on the forefront of trying to, that's why we're here. Changing things to go forward to make it better for their residents while they're there. And as far as environmental goes, again, we're within it, the area. Recently, there were 3 cottages that were approved outside of this. They're actually both here on the area. There's one here. One's off to the side over here, and then this one here, that was recently built, and approved by the board. For additional units, nothing, we're not doing any more units.
Okay, well, yeah, I guess I'm comfortable just referring it to our village engineer then. I agree, it's pretty minimal traffic changes.
Yeah, in terms of the environmental, they're previously disturbed areas, they're not disturbing any new areas, so I don't know that the environmental.
Right.
Weigh in on anything.
Yeah. Okay, so, well, first of all, can I get a motion to classify the project as unlisted under CPAC?
That's what we're in, yeah.
Yes, yeah.
So. Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And can I get a motion declaring the planning board's intent to be lead agency and
Are we doing an unlisted coordinated?
I like doing coordinated,
Okay.
unless you guys don't want.
Okay. Otherwise, it wouldn't matter, but that's fine.
Okay.
Yes.
So,
and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
And so then Mike, you will be able to circulate our.
Yeah. We'll have to figure out are there any financial state agencies that would be involved, agencies that have to give permits, because that doesn't always get captured sometimes in secret forms.
That's a good point, yeah, they have DEC and are there any funders?
Yeah, because you know who you're planning on applying to for funding, and if it's state or federal funding, they may be part of the secret process.
Well, it's not public funding, but we have oversight by public finance.
And we had an.
When you say oversight, do they have, do they,
That should be in
do
your.
they issue approval or not approval? Cause then, the only reason I ask is because they would become involved agencies.
Okay.
Discretionary permit or funding.
Yeah. And after, New York State DEC, DOH.
Yeah.
DC for the stormwater permit.
Yeah.
DOH for internal.
Yeah.
Components.
Agreed.
There is no external component that is required. The grease trap is reviewed by your planning engineer, and there's no department health approval for that. We verified with him locally. And then it's just the planning board.
Right, and you're not seeking any variances or?
No variances, there's relatively straightforward.
Yeah. So I guess, Dave, if you could identify any sort of agencies in terms of the state that may or may not have to approve anything in terms of the retirement community aspect that, we're not necessarily familiar with, or anything from funding perspective, just so we make sure we include them in they're probably gonna come back and they don't wanna be lead agency, but I'd rather
Yeah.
get it to them
Yeah, we'll check.
No, they, yeah.
Yeah.
They
If
will,
they don't
they-
respond in 30
Yeah,
days.
yeah,
They will not.
none of them are gonna wanna be lead agency at all, but if we don't refer to them by doing coordinated review.
Sure.
Then we're doing a disservice to you, so.
And then at the other end, they have the form when they need it,
Right,
the negative.
yeah, exactly.
Agreed, we'll check on that, yes, right back.
Appreciate that, thank you.
And then I guess the last thing would be, could I get a motion to refer this application to our village engineer for review?
So.
Second.
All in favor?
I.
That's all for tonight, but
And given all that referrals and stuff, we wanna just plan on it being on the the
Yeah.
second meeting of December, there's nothing to
Yeah.
happen in 2 weeks.
No, the only question I would have would be is, when could it be when would it be appropriate to request the public hearing? As it's a relatively small project.
I think we need to get our comments back from our consultants before we do that.
Understood.
Yeah.
So we'll wait in December. Okay, go from there. So the
Yes.
second meeting in December.
yes, so December 17th will be doing it again.
Excellent.
December 17th, it's getting busy.
Yeah. All right, thank you.
Thank you very
All
much.
right, thank you.
Is there anything else while we have you, everyone here that I'd like to call? Questions or anything? I know it's late. We appreciate that, and we do appreciate your time.
Now for the last one on the agenda, so it seems like
They basically just sent a request for an extension, so the board would need to do a resolution to extend it. By when
so you think that's no.
Motion to have our attorney draft the resolution and their
Yeah, draft it, we could approve it on the third.
Do that.
Okay,
Second.
yeah, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion to adjourn.
Mike, do you need me here for that one?
Aye.
Second? Who's seconding now?
Terry, second.
All in favor?
Aye.